I'd like to call this meeting to order. If we could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Trustee Mason?
Present.
Trustee Reinders?
Present.
Trustee McNaughton?
Present.
Trustee Consolino? Trustee Fialco?
Present.
Trustee Stylen?
Present.
Mayor Netsky-Trojki.
Present. Are there any amendments to the agenda? Hearing none, is there an approval of amendments to the agenda? Even though there are none. Is there a motion? Right, but we still have to approve the agenda.
I'll make the motion.
Trustee McNaughton, is there a second?
And I'll second.
Trustee Mason, Madam Clerk, please call the roll. I'm sorry, Trustee Fialco has a question.
No, as far as I don't see public comment time.
I asked that question earlier.
In our agendas, we said for special meetings and all meetings, the agenda would remain the same for all meetings. And just as long as we don't bypass public comment time and trustee time.
Trustee Fialco, I did ask that same question, and it's actually under 5. That is where it says public question and answer that is taking place of the public comment. Is there any more discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee McNaughton?
Aye.
Trustee Stylen?
Aye.
Trustee Fialco?
Aye.
Trustee Reinders?
Aye.
Trustee Mason?
Aye.
Motion carries. We're now moving on to the workshop for Parker, Hadley, Chicago, Bloomington corridor. First will be the presentation from the village. Before we proceed into the presentation, I'd just like to ask the audience to please allow the presentation to go through at its fullest and keep any comments or, to yourselves until after the presentation. Melissa, you want to begin?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Joe, do you want to do the clicker?
I got it.
Oh, you've got it, okay.
I'm going to go over a brief project overview. The Will County Division of Transportation has begun a study of the Parker Road, Chicago Bloomington Trail, Hadley Road, 167th Street corridor from US Route 6 to Will Cook Road. The impetus of their study was twofold, safety and pavement life. Will County has projected a cost of $20 million for project construction and engineering, additional $2 million for design, and $1.5 million for right-of-way acquisition. The roadway pavement, according to the county, is nearing the end of its useful life. In addition, the county has indicated the roadway currently has narrow pavement, little to no shoulder, drainage issues, and sight distance issues. I will add that staff does have a history of code enforcement related to drainage issues along the corridor that are known. The study was started to determine the appropriate treatment to bring the roadway up to current standards, improve the drainage, and improve sight distance issues. The county does not view this as a widening project. Staff does feel this is important to clarify because I think there's maybe a public perception that it's a widening project, but I think it's important when we're talking about technicalities with regard to road construction, what the state, the federal government, and the county would consider a widening project. They consider this a preservation project, and as there are no additional lanes being recommended except at a few key intersections. The Village of Homer Glen's transportation plan also recommends improvements at the intersections located at Chicago Bloomington Trail and Parker, as well as 167th and Parker. Brent Woods will go into detail of what those recommendations were in the transportation plan later in the presentation. During the county's public comment period, there were 176 unique public comments presented to the county. When staff met and spoke with the county, they did indicate that this is very high. In fact, I believe my memory serves that we asked how that gauged in their history of running projects like this, and there was only one other that was worse or had more, and it was also in Homer Glen. So they did indicate that this is very high involvement and that they would take this into consideration as they move through their process. At this time, the county has unofficially paused the project in order to allow the village to review options to protect the road corridor. On September 13th, 2023, the Village Board of Trustees passed a resolution to urge the county to protect the natural, historic, and cultural resources along the road corridor. Staff has requested the technical reports and surveys, as the mayor had requested, that the Will County Department of Transportation has been working on thus far through their phase 1 process. These documents have not been available to the public and for the public record. They've indicated to our staff that the reports thus far are still in a draft status. Some of them are in differing levels of draft status. They might still be with a sub-consultant under review or preparation, and the county doesn't even have it yet. Some of it they have, and they haven't reviewed it yet, so they're at different levels of review, but the things that we have requested have not been released for public record. I'm going to go through a little bit of corridor character to just kind of give us an overview on the corridor. It's predominantly a rural residential road dominated by large acreage properties with single-family homes. The corridor is adjacent to the Will County Forest Preserve Spring Creek Preservation System that conserves over 2,000 acres and includes Messenger Marsh and Messenger Woods. The corridor is heavily wooded with mature trees that provide not only an environmental benefit, but are a defining cultural aesthetic. The corridor is also surrounded by sensitive environmental features such as floodplain, wetlands, creeks, and natural drainage ways that are tributary to that Spring Creek Preservation System. Just as note, the village slogan, Community, Nature, and Harmony, exemplifies a commitment to the quality of life through maintaining open space, preserving our unique rural character, and safeguarding our natural resources. I did some research when we drafted the resolution, but I wanted to go over a little bit of what the Will County Rural Historic Structural Survey from 2002 recommended for this corridor. It recommended that the Hadley Road and Chicago-Bloomington Road be named a heritage route. It states that the Hadley area was an early crossroads settlement in northwest Will County, located along a route that had been a Native American trail. And you can see this is a map that was in that survey. It's an excerpt from an Indian trail in the village of Chicago and Cook, DuPage, and Will County, Illinois, map of those trails from 1804. It describes this area as a region forming a heritage trail in southeast Homer Township with numerous architectural resources and unique landscapes, and further identifies 7 farmsteads, Hadley Cemetery, Hadley Settlement, and Stone Manor, which is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Oh, and if I didn't point out, for the small little yellow section on the bottom left, I wanted to include Lake Michigan just to give a sense of us within the region. The Will County Rural Historic Structural Survey also states the region's first post office was established on July 27, 1835 at the intersection of present-day Parker and Chicago-Bloomington roads. Settlers in the region named the area Hadley after Hadley, Massachusetts, where they immigrated from, and for which Hadley Road is named. The survey recommended additional research and planning that was necessary to define and implement the preservation of the proposed Hadley Road and Chicago-Bloomington Road heritage route. And this map is also from that survey, and the hatched area you can see on the map, I know it's a little difficult to read, but it was the best quality that we could find, shows that potential heritage corridor area that was recommended for preservation. So now I'd like to go over a few, I would describe them as tools in a preservation or a conservation toolbox that can be used. These are tools that numerous conservation foundations utilize to try to protect land. I think in my discussions, the conversations around road projects are a little different than just a private piece of property. So I'll go over a few of these. So having the corridor itself placed on the National Register. Per the State Historic Preservation Officer, the village can apply to have the corridor on the National Register. There's no guarantee it would be placed or accepted, but we could apply. They did indicate that really any entity can apply and that the owner of land cannot object, is what was stated to staff. Placement on the National Register, though, as they explained it, is generally honorific or like a sign of respect, if you will. It will not stop eminent domain proceedings if need is proven for a road project. But it will, and I think this is in comparison to when I use the word could or can or may, I think this would create regulatory slowdown for a project. So I think what happens there is that when a road project is proceeding through phase 1 and they find that, for instance, the Stone Manor, this is the image that you're looking at, that's on the corridor, this is on the register. And so when this project goes through phase 1, they're going to find that this structure's on that register, and it's going to trigger a review at the Cultural Resources Protection Office. And so this piece would trigger that review, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it stops a project. It just, there's like a checklist. Does it impact it? They're going to look at whether or not the intent of that corridor is being changed completely, and it's going to be up to the discretion of that office within their federally mandated regulatory allowances. So private preservation and conservation easements or deed restrictions, in discussions with numerous people, these will also not stop eminent domain. They could create procedural slowdown and typically do. I think it depends on the complexity of the preservation easements that are on there, who's on those preservation easements, like who owns rights to those. I think what happens, and it's possible our council could maybe elaborate on this if there's questions from the trustees, but I think that it may just extend the process for a longer period of time. But ultimately, again, if there's need and the project ends up moving forward, oftentimes these things are just taken through that process as well. Local overlay districts. The village could create a new overlay district specifically for the corridor. That would be my recommendation. We have a section in our code that talks about preservation areas, but it's not an overlay district, and it's really just about environmental focus. So my recommendation would be that there would be a corridor district over this whole area that is recommended for historic protection, and that it be very unique to this corridor. This would require a text amendment. I don't think it needs to be in the zoning code. I think it could be in that same subdivision code. It does show the village's support for the corridor protection. I do not believe that this will stop progression of the Will County project. There's no trigger in place that would stop that. But I do think that this does provide local protection. And when I say that, I think that while this board may feel very strongly about preserving this road, I'm not sure, we'll have discussion tonight, but if that was the case, we always want to make sure that the future is also protected. So I think that if that's the intent of the board, then we want to make sure that that is going to extend into the future. So this would create kind of a local layer of protection if it was under our control. The presence of floodplains, wetlands, forest preserve, old growth trees, the potential long-eared bat habitat, et cetera, will create procedural slowdown for projects regardless of jurisdiction. It's likely that the presence of these features will not stop the project, but the road design may be adjusted based on specific regulatory requirements. I included an example in this cute little long-eared bat. We've recently had a project where this bat came into play. It's a federally threatened species, and it was made clear to us, and we did clarify through this process that we're doing tonight, exactly what that entails. So this bat, their habitat is really a problem during the breeding season, and so they tag the trees where they might be there, and if they find that that is bat habitat, really the only restriction is that you can't take those trees down during breeding season. But once breeding season is up, you can take the trees down. So that's just one example of how a regulatory control like this, it might seem like it's going to stop something in its tracks, but really there's, every one of those different regulatory controls has different variabilities, whether it be wetlands or floodplains or different types of endangered or threatened species. So to get into the jurisdictional transfer, I know that's a big point of discussion. I'm going to give a little bit of breakdown on kind of the high level on jurisdictional transfer, and then our Public Works Director is going to go into cost for maintenance and long-term cost of construction to take care of the road. The road mileage breakdown per jurisdiction. There's a map here that shows you, the pink is in our corporate limits currently, the village's corporate limits. The blue on the kind of top right side that goes over into Orland Township is an unincorporated Orland Township. And then there's a yellow piece that goes down south of, I can't remember that road that's right there. It's not Route 6, it's Maple?
I thought it was Maple Road.
I think it's Maple. So that component all the way down to Route 6 is in unincorporated New Lenox Township. And then those breakdowns of mileage within the corporate limits is 3.16 miles. In the New Lenox Township, it's approximately 0.59 miles. In the Orland Township, it's approximately 0.23 miles. Collectively, that is what's the total Will County project. Pursuant to the Illinois Municipal Code, the village can request a jurisdictional transfer from the county for the road corridor that is currently under the county's jurisdiction. If accepted, let me preface that by saying that that comment is about what's in the corporate limits. We'll talk about outside the corporate limits on the next slide. If accepted, the village would be responsible for all maintenance of the roads. The funding source would dictate how the road could be designed in the future. The Will County Board would have to authorize this via a vote. The Village Board of Trustees here would also have to authorize that with a vote, and an agreement is required between the two entities. I believe that entity gets sent to IDOT in order to document that transfer. Based on legal opinion, the village could take over the jurisdiction from the county and then transfer that jurisdiction to the township. This was just a follow-up question that staff had received by a number of individuals, and we did get a legal opinion on this. Again, if there's questions, we can certainly ask our counsel. Pursuant to state statute, municipalities can have jurisdiction outside of their corporate limits within 1.5 miles. These roads must be contiguous to the corporate limits and connected to existing streets within the municipality. The caveat to this one, which I have not reviewed, but we would need to if this was going to be pursued, is that we need to review our boundary agreements. I did not have a chance to review them. I do think that typically this is addressed, roads between those within those annexation agreement or boundary agreements. So it may be that the Village of New Lenox may have rights to this and not us, but I think that would be up to we'd have to have our council review that. And that would be, just to clarify, the yellow portion of the corridor and the small blue portion of the corridor.
Melissa, would you mind repeating that again? Would you mind repeating what you just said again?
So we can't, as a village, by state statute, villages, municipalities can take over jurisdiction of roads that are outside your corporate limits, but they have to be contiguous with our corporate limits, and they have to be connected to existing streets. So you couldn't pick up a small road that's outside of your corporate limits if it's not connected to your road network already. You have to have access, I think, is what the intent would be. So then we, as a village, if we were going to pursue the yellow portion and the blue portion for jurisdictional transfer from Will County, we would need to have our council review our boundary agreements, because we may not actually have rights. It might be the Village of New Lenox and the Village of Orland Park. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. So now I'm going to let Director of Public Works, Brent Woods, speak on the pavement and the estimations on maintenance and cost of construction. He and Brett Westcott, our village engineer, spent a lot of time talking about this, and I think he's better suited to explain this information. And so go ahead.
Okay, thank you. As Director King said, Mr. Westcott and myself sat down, we worked over all the information, everything we come up with. We took site visits to compile this information, and we came up with a pretty fair estimate of 5 to 10 years of life left in the road as it exists. The largest impact on this, on the lifespan of this, is going to be freeze and thaw, depending on weather and how harsh the winter we have over the next few years. Depending on current conditions, this would impact and determine what the next step in repairing the roadway once it reaches the end of its service, whether it be a simple resurface or a complete replacement. Geotechnical data, as was stated earlier, is not available yet, so we don't have the borings to tell what's there, as that's still in draft status and not available to us. Go to the next one. So we came up with some costs. The maintenance cost of $45,000 per year with a contingency of $58,500. This estimate was done by taking our public works budget minus non-road related items, minus non-road maintenance related items, and dividing by the centerline miles of road we have to come up with approximately $15,000 per lane mile per year is the cost of maintaining our roads. So adding that, putting that together with the 3 miles we anticipate taking, or I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that the proposal here is $45,000. Right now, the Public Works Department we're down 2 people from what we were when we were the township. And we're kind of stretched as it is now, so in order to do this, we will need to hire another employee. And the total cost of that, with salary, IMRF, FICA, workers' comp, fringe benefits, everything all in, is about $73,000. And this would be an annual, this is a repeating cost every year. The estimated cost for resurfacing, these were, I'm sorry, next slide. The estimated cost of resurfacing this road was determined to be right around $1,071,800, with the contingencies added in would be $1,393,340. This is an estimate cost to mill and resurface the roadway in its current state. County indicated that the subbase for the pavement is material that is no longer in use due to poor performance. As I understand, it's also the method that they used back when this was done is no longer used. If the subbase is failing, resurface is only a Band-Aid, won't completely solve. We'd have to go back and do base repairs as well through the whole road. Get the next one, okay. The estimated cost to remove and replace, we thought was, we calculated would be between $5.5 million and $6 million. With the contingency, it comes to about $7.8 million. The cost is based on replacing in kind with 10-foot lanes with a 2-foot aggregate shoulder. In order to keep that same cross-section, we'd need to fund this without federal assistance and without using motor fuel tax funds unless design exceptions are granted. Typically, the use of federal funds requires the IDOT standard section, which is wider and would have a larger impact. The cost was mainly developed off of materials cost. It provides a contingency for drainage and other items. However, the extent of the additional work can't be determined until we move forward with phase 1 and 2 engineering, and that includes the type of repair to the road. Got the next one? Okay, so the estimated cost of the intersection improvements, the Shy, Bloom, and Parker, the cost in 2006 dollars was $1,278,683. Adding the 3% inflation over 17 years of $652,128, which puts the cost plus inflation plus contingency at $2,510,054. 167th and Parker, $908,279 is the cost in 2006. The 3% inflation over 17 years was $463,223, with a cost plus inflation plus contingency of $1,782,953. Cost is based on the improvement recommendations in the Village of Homer Glen Transportation Plan that we spoke of earlier. Chicago Bloomington Trail and Parker Road. Signaling, 4 left turns, 4 right turn lanes. This improvement was listed as the #1 priority for 2016. Let's see, this is the improvement, going on to the next one. I think you had something from Brett, did you not?
Tuesday afternoon, no, he went yesterday. He went on Monday afternoon, and he drove the corridor again and looked at I know there was a question about his personal assessment of the road. Now, we don't have borings, but he did put together something that said the existing pavement at face value appears to be in good or fair condition per the Pacer manual. I don't know what that is, but what's it?
Yeah, the Pacer manual is an assessment book that we all use for assessing our roads. We use it every year, so using this for this particular project was consistent with what we do in the rest of the town.
He says to perform a complete and full evaluation, we would need to see the geotech report and to determine the condition of the subgrade. As it exists, much of the roadway corridor does not have substantial shoulder or has no shoulder. I think anybody who's driven that road is familiar with this, how the pavement just kind of goes off into the vegetation or the ditch in areas where that 2-foot shoulder that was designed back in 1980 has all but disappeared in many locations. The lack of shoulder is a safety concern. If a vehicle would need to swerve or miss something in the road where they're going to go immediately into a ditch. The lack of shoulder is also a design serviceability concern. So this can be seen in roads, in the road's current condition with the alligator cracking. So I'm not an expert and apologize that Brett is not here, but as I understand it, it can undermine the road pavement if there's not that shoulder edge. And resurfacing the road without addressing the shoulders and the drainage would just be a Band-Aid. And if we did address even small shoulders where there aren't any right now, it could impact the ditch. It could impact drainage volume in those ditches where we already have drainage issues. So I think this is important. Although I think that on face value, Brett's assessment is that the road is not imminent need. I do think that based on some of the discussion earlier tonight about freeze thaw and our harsh winters, there is a little bit of unknown about how many years we may actually have. To go into the federal funding questions regarding federal funding and design standards and design exceptions, it's a typical course of action that the use of federal funds, whether it be normal federal funding or motor fuel tax, would mandate bringing the roadway up to current IDOT standards. There is a process for design exceptions with IDOT. That process involves extensive design review and communication with the state, and there is no guarantee that they're going to grant those requests. While under Will County's jurisdiction, the engineer of record would be a consultant who's hired and working for Will County. And while the village can petition for the county to make design requests, exception requests, ultimately that decision lies with the Will County Board and Will County Department of Transportation. Design exceptions to IDOT standards are typically reserved for projects or scenarios where an engineer has exhausted all other options and there's no other viable solution to resolve the issue. A project can be classified as a 3R project known as a resurface, restoration, or rehabilitation, but this is generally for projects where roads already meet the standard and they're looking for, like, a village might be looking for just replacement of that, but they already meet those the normal standards. Many criteria are considered in determining whether a project can be considered a 3R, including the extent of pavement replacement, the incorporation of the project's geometric improvement, which can be dependent on available right-of-way, and also environmental impacts. And then I think this came straight from the design manual, but a successful 3R project is one that improves ride quality and reduces life cycle costs. And when talking with Brett, our village engineer, he did indicate that this is going to play a role in whether or not we achieve funding, because by not addressing shoulders or not addressing the drainage issues that we do know about out on the corridor, it might not be a project that IDOT is willing to grant those to, but we don't know the answer to those questions. I think that's the big issue, is that we don't know. Going into this right now, we don't know what they'll grant, whether it be to the county or to the village. To close, this is my last slide on the presentation tonight, is just to talk a little bit about other funding options outside of federal funding, which would include the village self-funding any road maintenance or road construction on the corridor. There is a tool called a special service area. It's basically a specialized tax that's taxed on properties that would be right adjacent to the corridor, and that could pay for that road construction just for those residents that are near that corridor. There's also, obviously, I'm sure there are grant opportunities, but the village has not done a thorough review of that. And I would add to this is that every one of those grants has different variables and requirements, and I think that each one would have to be looked at on a case-by-case basis. We'd likely need, I think in discussion with Trustee Reinders today, she had spoken with the grant writer consultant that had come in at our last board meeting, and she said that you would likely have to consolidate a number of grants to get the dollar amount that you were looking for a project of this type. So, and that completes staff's presentation, but if you have questions, we'll go into board questions and discussion with staff at this stage.
We'll start with Trustee Fialco. Do you have any questions right now?
For one, Will County, I'd like to defer it to our lawyer if I could. Has Will County said that they're even willing to entertain the process that we're speaking about today? Because without Will County's cooperation, obviously we won't be doing anything. So have we moved in that direction to have that conversation with their board or their?
I can actually answer that. I had a meeting with Jeff Robertson, is that his name, correct? It was myself, Mr. Baber, and a few others, and Melissa and Brett Westcott were also there. And when I had asked that same question, he said at that time they would be willing to entertain the road transfer.
But it would still take their boards.
Correct.
Their board would have to vote on it though, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and he hadn't talked to the board to see where they're at with something like this either?
He didn't state whether he did or he did not, but he said it didn't seem to be a problem.
Okay. The other question that I would have, and maybe it's too early for that question, but the taxes that Will County collects on that road already, how would that be handled? Because obviously by the miles they have their formula for collecting tax for the roads, right? So how would that transfer over to, maybe this is a lawyer question, I don't know. How would that transfer over back to us where we would somehow recoup some of that money that would have already been allocated towards that?
That's a great question. Attorney, do you have any answers for that?
Generally, as Director King mentioned, if there were going to be a transfer from one governmental unit to another, there would be a written agreement that goes along with that. Once the transfer happens, as we know, the taxes come due the year after they accrue, the taxes would come to the village. For the tax year previous, that would be coming due around the time of the transfer, that would be part of the written agreement that Director King referred to.
Okay. The other thing is with the MFT funds, I don't believe we're in a position as a village for the MFT funds that we collect. I don't know if you've been watching our bar graphs with our income lately and the things that take place within the village financially. But I don't think if we focus only on MFT funds, I don't believe we're there to support this road. And normally when we take something in, it's because there's a benefit to everybody. And I understand the concern for this road and everything, but I'm just worried about the cost implications, because we bring this in and we take and we say, yeah, we want it and we want to help. But I don't know if the better option is to work with Will County and get the residents what they want, besides us trying to take over a $20 million project that, well, their estimates to do it per the IDOT standards, I understand that. I mean, this is going to cost a lot of money. So their estimates on page 7 were the $20 million, the $2 million for the design, and $1.5 million for the right-of-way acquisition. So the other option that I've heard out there, and I don't know if we can do it, and I wouldn't want to do this, but it depends how, and if it had to go to a referendum, I don't know if a special assessment to the people that are adjacent to that road for the things that we wouldn't, where those costs could be absorbed through a special assessment. I wouldn't want to go down that road, but we have to find a way to pay for things. And we are not a village with a whole lot of money. And we have tried to keep taxes down and not to raise taxes. For the past 3 years that I've been here, that's what I've seen. So that's where I'm at with it.
Thank you, Trustee Fialko. I know Trustee Consolino's not here, but I believe she had sent you a statement for that she would like you to read.
She did. Is this the
Yep,
time
now
to
is the
read
time,
that?
yes.
Trustee Castellino says, I apologize I cannot attend tonight's meeting. I am overseas and the mayor insisted this workshop takes place during my absence. I have mixed opinions about the proposal of the Village of Homer Glen taking on the acquisitions of the Hadley Parker Road. At our August 23rd board meeting, the mayor publicly stated she wanted to take over the road after the Homer Township Road District Commissioner stated he wanted to do this to accommodate the residents along the road and their concerns to protect it, their homes, and the environment. Since August 23rd, I have repeatedly asked our mayor, our village attorney, and our interim village manager in writing to provide me with the mayor's plan to do this. The facts, the cost, the legal analysis, and ultimately the feasibility and financial impact it will have on the village and our taxpayers. I didn't receive any information until last week, and I have not received all of the information. We still have not received any studies conducted by the Will County Department of Transportation or IDOT. We can speculate on the cost, but we cannot do a proper cost analysis or feasibility study without them. The suggestion of using our state motor fuel tax to pay for this endeavor has been brought up. Yes, it's appropriate to use this tax for the road, but it's not enough. It also does not generate the projected revenue it should, nor does it cover all of our current maintenance for our road projects. With the price of gas continuing to increase, the revenue source is not likely to increase either. We currently subsidize our 2-year-old Public Works Department from our Capital Projects Fund. Public Works currently costs us over $4 million to run a year. And with the ever-increasing cost due to inflation and the economy, that number will continue to rise. Also, in the very near future, we may be looking at a possible union contract for our public works employees, which will have to be subsidized from our general fund. Our tax levy for the Public Works Department is $1.5 million. Our village never conducted a feasibility study before taking on ownership of the Township Road District, nor did the village do one for the tax levy to pay for it. Until an outside professional firm conducts a proper feasibility study regarding this proposal, I can state with confidence that it would be a complete irresponsible and fiscally irresponsible for this board to approve the mayor's alleged proposal for taking over the Hadley Parker Road. I thank our staff for working hard to provide what information they could for this meeting. Unfortunately, I think this project requires much more time, research, and outside counsel before any consideration should be taken. Respectfully, Trustee Jennifer Castellino.
Thank you, Trustee Fialko. Trustee Reinders, do you have any questions or discussion?
I really don't have any questions. Basically, I have been working with Melissa, me and Sue, and the mayor. We've all been working together to put all of this information together for you. And one of the things that we keep coming across again and again is with every scenario that we present to the county or to this board or to our staff, we come back with one conclusion. And that conclusion is that number one, how are we going to pay for this road? And number two, if we go for funding for this road, we will have to adhere to the federal or state guidelines, which is very disheartening because of the fact that, you know, we have to look at the cost of what it's going to cost. We do not want to tax the taxpayers, so we have to figure out a way to be able to do this. And if we have to work with the county, and if the county is willing to work with us, and I think that should be our goal, is to really try to work with the county to make this happen for the residents so that nothing changes there. Believe me, we all on this board, we love that road. We want to preserve it for as long as we possibly can. But with that said, 20 years, 30 years down the road, we have to have something in place to be able to preserve that road. So and it's a process, and the process isn't going to happen overnight. It's going to take time, because with every phase that we go through to try to protect this road, there's another process, and then another layer, and another layer. So I would just like everybody to know we are diligently working, and we are working through all of that. But there are requirements that we have to do in order to get an answer for you. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Trustee Reinders. Trustee McNaughton, do you have any questions or comments?
No, no further questions. You know, we've had some discussion so far on cost, and of course, that's going to be the first thing that, you know, hits everyone's subconscious when you look at, you know, millions of dollars. But I think there's something else that, you know, we're missing in this discussion, and that's the price of not protecting this historic area. I agree with Trustee Reinders, it would be irresponsible to not continue the conversation, to look at the options. You know, that's why we're here having the meeting this evening. And there are various options as we've looked at as well. I look forward to public comment and continuing the discussion.
Thank you, Trustee McNaughton. Trustee Mason?
Yes, ma'am. I have family that actually lives on Spring Creek, and the historic value means a lot to me. I agree with both Trustee Reinders, I spoke with her earlier today, as well as Trustee Stylen and McNaughton. We don't want to raise taxes. That's not a goal. We do want to incorporate this somehow. That would be my solution. I don't know what the solution, the end solution is at this point, but I just know that from the numbers that I'm seeing, that we're in a better position than if the township actually had it. And correct me if I'm wrong, because the township's $66,000 a mile, and we're much less than that. So I don't know what the solution is. You know, this is a workshop, and I'm glad it's coming to light, and I would love nothing more to have it within the village. I would like to have more of the township within the village, actually. So.
Thank you. Trustee Stylen?
Yes, this situation reminds me a lot of the very reason why we incorporated as a village, and it was to control our future and to preserve what we have here in the village. And some people may think that this is a small section of the village, it doesn't in fact affect the entire village, but it does. How many people, when they have company and they take them for a tour of the village, don't drive down Parker Road or Hadley Road and show them the beauty of the village that exists over there? We spend money in this village on parks in all sorts of subdivisions and neighborhoods. We've spent very little on the south side of this village. We spend money on drainage improvement projects for different subdivisions. The ditches that are along the side of this road could be considered drainage improvement projects. As far as the cost of $20 million, I believe when Brent Porfilio came before the board, when he was speaking to the residents and referencing that the township could take over the road, I'm sure he wasn't thinking it was going to cost $20 million, because there is no way that the township could afford $20 million. So I do believe that the cost of this road is likely to be much less. And again, we don't have to come up with this money tomorrow. We have at least 5 years probably of life left on this road. So I do believe this is a doable project for the village. It's scary. I think we have to really get financial figures together. We haven't had conversations with the county, because it had to come before this board first to get board support, whether we would want to pursue anything more with the county. And I think that's about it.
Thank you, Trustee Stylen. I probably don't even need to state this, but I'm sure many of you know that I did not request this meeting because of the absence of Trustee Consolino. I'm sure many of you know that did not happen. I do have a couple of questions. The discussion of taxing the residents that live along that corridor, to me that just kind of sounds kind of silly. You have residents that live in Homer Township that live along that corridor, correct?
Correct.
And you have some that live in the village.
Correct.
How do you figure out who taxes who and what? And the way I look at it, if you're in the village, you're part of the village. It's not that side, it's not this side. We're all one big family. You got to help each other out when, if this side of the village is hurting, this side of the village also pays that tax. So we got to figure out how to make this work together. I do agree that my number one concern is the cost. I'm happy to hear that it's somewhere between 1 and 5 million and not 20. Yes, my goal is not to have this expansion. This road is a beautiful road. It's part of what makes Homer Glen. I think we need to, tighten up our purse strings and figure out where we can get this money from. I don't think we should just be taxing, I don't want to tax anyone, but I don't think putting a tax on just the residents that live there makes any sense. Did we ever get a traffic study back from the county on how many cars travel that road? When I had met with him, he said somewhere around 4,000 cars. I find
It is
that
closer to that. I don't know the exact numbers, although they're on their project website. But I believe, my memory serves, I looked at them the other day with Brett, I want to say they're in the realm of 4,000 to 6,000. It's lower. There are some projected costs from older plans that are a little bit high, but they're not heavily trafficked roads. I know our residents mentioned this at one of our board meetings, I believe, when they were speaking about the details of this, and that it wasn't warranted for, trying to remember how it was stated, but not warranted for like expansion or widening. This is why it's important to understand that the county isn't looking at it this way, nor will the state when they're looking at the federal funding. They're not looking at this project as a widening. So I think the traffic needs and the impetus for that, because of counts on the road, are not what they're looking at as far as this project is concerned. It's that, it goes back to that safety, intersections, vision, horizontal vision issues, and pavement life.
Did we actually receive that study though? Or is it just something on their website?
Well, I think it's in their project documents currently.
Okay, does it say how many accidents have happened on that roughly 4 mile stretch?
Yeah, they have that information on the website as well.
Okay, but we don't have any of that here, it's just
Not
all on
in
the
this
website.
Presentation, no.
Okay. I just had a couple of other questions. Was there a reason why we can't have the geotech report?
So that one in particular, I believe, is still with the sub-consultant. So the county hasn't actually received that report back, even though the geotech borings have occurred. I think it takes a pretty long time for those consultants to put that report together. So that's that particular one.
Okay. I know
That's the last, Mr. Weber, right? That was the last correspondence on that? Yeah.
I know in the one meeting I had with Mr. Robertson, he said that there were some flooding issues. Do you know of any flooding issues on that road?
So we don't deal with flooding issues on the road itself. It generally doesn't get reported to us. I'm not aware of any major flooding on that road.
No, okay. Just curious, because I've never seen any flooding on that road. I was just curious, and
I do think
residents that I
we've
talked-
received complaints over the years. There are documented drainage issues on people's property right off the road. And I think that based on how that road corridor was designed in the 80s, I think some of it wasn't taken into account, those natural drainage ways. And so I think we have like localized flooding on private property.
Because when I think of flooding, I think of Wilcook Road. I mean, that floods, you can't get cars through. Is this like a little puddle in the road, or is this like a flood where it stops traffic from coming, right? So I would like more of that information. The other thing is, you had mentioned the historical status of this road, and I know Trustee Reinders had talked to the woman that was here last time about grant funding. Does that, since if it became a historical area, does IDOT give us some wiggle room because it is a historical area where we can still get some grant funding, or is it their way or the highway? Literally, no pun intended, but.
I think this comes back to that discussion on if the corridor itself were to be placed on the registry, that's what you're asking, it will trigger a review, like when the phase 1 project goes through, even if the county had it or we had it. So that's why on my bullet point, that procedural slowdown that will happen regardless of the jurisdiction, right? So if we take it, it's important to understand that we will create, if we did that, we would create our own procedural slowdown, which is, I mean, if the village wants to protect it, that would be, would dovetail that. But I think that they have a step-by-step checklist with the Cultural Resources Protection Office that looks at these corridor things during projects. And step 1 is like, does it impact, say it's the actual structure, and say the Stone Manor, let's just pretend, sits further closer to the road, and the right-of-way taking and their design is clipping that, or there's concern that maybe it's too close to the foundation that it might impact the structural stability of that structure. That Cultural Resources Protection Office might say to that consultant in Will County, you need to look at this segment, just the segment because of that structure, and adjust your right-of-way. And they might have to go back to the drawing board and shift the right-of-way south to protect that building. Now in this case, the Stone Manor doesn't sit close to the road, so that's not a real-life example. But I think that if the corridor sat on that the whole corridor was on the registry, they would be looking at that for why it got placed on the registry, how this road project might impact that. If it gets on the registry because of mostly its historic nature, and that's what the federal government is protecting in their eyes, then they're going to be looking at whether or not that road project that's being proposed is going to affect the history. So I think, again, this is hypothesizing, but I would think in my brain that one of the pieces of the history out here is the layout, right? So they talk about in the Rural Historic Survey that this is one of there's not very many of these non-orthogonal roads, right? It follows this old native trail. And I think that the idea of that layout might be something that the state and the federal government might find important as a cultural resource, right? And the protection of that. So, for instance, horizontal alignment is going to be pressed up against safety and history. So you're going to have the federal government and the state looking at both of those things and trying to find a balance. There's no one pathway, and I don't think that any of us can answer that question. It's going to be up to the state and the federal offices and their review on a case-by-case basis.
I also believe that when Trustee Reinders, you had spoke to the professional grant writer, that she stated there may be some, it wasn't state and federal, private funding, private grants. Would you like to elaborate on that a little?
What she did say was that, when you have a project of this magnitude of $5,000 or $6,000, and it is a road, whether it's historical or we're just trying to preserve the road, basically what happens is the foundations will only give you a small amount of money. You might be able to pick up 100,000 here, 100,000 there, 500,000 here, but nothing of real significance to be able to pay for the road. You would probably need to go to so many donors, and it probably would be utterly impossible. Now, one of the other ways, if you want me to elaborate on
Please
that,
do.
one of the other ways that you would look at something like this through with a grant writer, what she said was, so take a project you have within the village. So say it's the amphitheater in the park, and at our capital funds, we've allotted $5 million for that amphitheater. What you could do is you could actually take those funds and you could realign those funds for the road and then go after a grant for the amphitheater. She said there's so many different ways of doing this, but she said to realistically think that you're going to go out there and raise $5 or $6 million for a road, unless it's federally or state funded, is almost virtually impossible.
Thank you, Trustee Reinders. So I know the comment was made that I said I'm taking this road. I do think it is in the best interest for the residents, whether they live here or there, that we do everything we possibly can to save this road. It's part of the village. I understand that there is a cost, but that's what we're here for. It's our job to find out where we find the funds. I mean, if someone came in my front yard and wanted to tear out my trees and my bushes and my curb, right, in my own house, not in the village, I would have to find a way, me and my husband would have to find a way to fix it, right? That's our job. We have to figure out how to do the best we can for these residents. And again, I heard, these residents live in Homer Township. Well, I care. I've got village residents that live there too. So me personally, I think we have to do everything we can to fix this, to save this road the way it is, do the changes we need to, and we have some time to find the funds. You're right, Trustee Reinders, if we need to move money from the parks or wherever else to make it happen, I think that's what we need to do. But those are my statements. I think, does any other trustees have anything else to say in addition to what they already said?
Allow me, yeah.
Trustee Fialko?
Listening to everybody, we all want the best for the residents out there. All of us do. What cost is it going to be? That's unknown at this point, depending on how we choose to do it. I think the best thing that was talked about so far is the historical status and trying to mend that into the whole idea of that being a historical piece of property. And even if we did a cost share with the county, but leave it with the county. Let them take care of it, where it's not a continual thing for us. So if we take and we find through legal that because of the Indian Trail, we can get a historic status besides the resolution that we passed on this, and we get something like that, and you're able to find a way that we can then kind of, even if you were able to do this, till now we've got this historical status, right? And now we don't have to go by the IDOT standards, but we would still be allowed money from the federal government or from the state through IDOT. And so I think that's a better avenue to try first than to say, yeah, I want it, let's spend all the money and let's do it right away. I think we need to take little steps towards this and see what will work first, and not rush to the judgment that we need to spend the money to adopt it. And you're right, we probably could find a way to do it. But I think a better route would be with the historical status and kind of move it in that direction. Because we have water we're working on. We have a lot of things we're working on that everybody wants taken care of. And so we have to prioritize the way we do things. That's my thought.
Trustee Fialko, I think you misheard me. I didn't say let's rush and hurry up and take this road.
No, I didn't say you did.
But that's
That was
the
my
way.
interpretation of Alderman.
Right. I didn't hear that interpretation from anybody, but I don't think anyone's in a rush to take the road and just start spending money. I think exactly what you said is what the rest of us are saying, is we need to figure out where and how. If I have to take it from this to move it to here to help these residents, I think that's what we should look at. Trustee Reinders?
I would just like to say one thing to Trustee Fialko, that even if the road is designated historical in nature, Melissa and I know, I mean, we've talked to these people, all it will do is slow down the project. It basically does not guarantee us, that IDOT or Will County, if they still control the road, that they're going to listen to us. It'll slow the project down because there's going to have to be other steps that they take, but that does not guarantee that they will keep the road as is.
Did that come from legal?
That's what we have discovered all along, is that no matter if we designate this historical or not, if we try to go for federal funding, it's by their guidelines. Yes, it'll slow the project down, but it's their guidelines.
Trustee Fialko, that was based on my direct conversations with the state historic preservation officer, but of course our council could weigh in. He may have some knowledge of this.
Well, the first statement I would like to make is if the county really cared about these residents, why didn't they make it historical for them? They would be taking the initiative to save this road for them. Instead, we are actually going to bat for them against the county, trying to stop it. So I think the residents are in better hands with us than them as it sits right now. Attorney, do you have anything to add?
I think Director King had on most of the points. IDOT, I mean, a historical preservation ruling would slow down the project, no doubt about it. Might it give more credibility to your request for design exceptions? Possibly. But as Director King said, it's a case-by-case basis. You never know with any degree of certainty what ruling you're going to get from IDOT. It's been our experience that they always slow down when you do the historical designation, but there's no guarantee that those design exceptions are going to be granted. So you had made a comment about, is it possible by getting historic to keep it as is? Yeah, it's possible, but that would require a lot of design exceptions to be approved by IDOT.
Understood.
Trustee Mason?
Yes. So I didn't hear some of the things that assumptions were made, but I thought that I heard 5 to 10 years away from a major maintenance overall. I definitely agree with Trustee Reinders, yourself. I think pretty much the entire board that it needs to be designated historical to slow the process for whatever reason, whether it be for protection, safety, or historic value. Bottom line, I think we're all family. And if somebody in my family's in trouble, I try to help them wherever we can. I think you said this best, Madam Mayor. I think it's our due diligence to assist. I don't know what the time frame is that we have to move on this, but so far I'm hearing the worst case scenario is 5 years. And the best case scenario is 10. So we have time to figure out the solutions as you state. I don't know why it got pressed so quickly? Was this because Will County was coming through and going to do this if we did not at some point, like in the immediate future?
I believe they said they wouldn't break ground into 2028 is, I believe, what
So
they
we
said.
have time.
So we do have time, but at the same time, we don't.
No, but we
because
need
they're
to
going to
make- no,
start.
we need to do what we're doing right now, and I agree on that, but to Mr. or Trustee Fialko's point, this is not a rush. I mean, yes, we want to protect this. Again, I have family that in their backyard is Spring Creek, so I understand. And I look at this entire village as my family. So I want to protect my little brothers and sisters, and I think we just need to create the solution, and I think we're heading in the right direction.
Trustee Mason, just so you know that the reason that they started this project so soon was because the president made available the funds for road projects. So that's why they jumped on it. And do I think that the numbers are inflated? Absolutely. I absolutely believe that the numbers are inflated because I feel that Will County right now can take advantage of the federal funding, and they're going to ask for as much as they possibly can get to be able to, to grab that funding. So, but yeah, that's the reason why it started so soon.
I agree, Trustee Reiners, and thank you for that perspective, because I also thought the same thing, that Will County inflated the numbers, absolutely. When you think about government in general, they're always going to reach for the moon. I worry about the federal government getting any assistance because we open up other doors. You ask for a state road, you ask for an on-ramp, you get urban housing development. Other things come with that money. There's attachments, so.
Trustee Steilen.
Yes, I just wanted to emphasize again, if we don't take it, future boards will be facing the county at some other time. And then also that probably 95%, if not more, of the residents of this village, we take care of their roads. So why wouldn't we take care of the roads of the remainder of the residents in this village? So, I mean, yes, it's going to cost it, but that's what we do for every other resident in this village.
Trustee McNaughton.
Slow and steady wins the race, right? So we have time, again, to reiterate your point, Trustee Steilen, to say that it doesn't impact enough of the village, or it's only, a few households. We don't look at other parts of the village in that way. Obviously, the 20 million is overinflated, and again, we have many years before we get to that point. That's my final comment. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move on to public question and answer.
If the public does have a question, how are you going to
If I know the
farm
answer.
that out?
If I know the answer, I'll answer. If not, I'll correct it out.
All right.
Is anybody else cold in here? It's freezing in
Trustee
here.
Mason did that.
You guys are hot? Come sit up here, it's cold.
Oh, down, yeah, down.
Just leave it, they're all hot back there. Man. Whoa. Okay, we have about 30 names on this list. It's 7:30. I'd like to get out of here before midnight. So, we're going to kind of leave this. Usually we do 3 minutes. If you go over 3 minutes, we're not going to stop you and get permission to have you continue to speak. That we just ask you to be mindful that this room is cold up here and hot over there. So let's just try to keep our comments, direct. First up, Darren and Steve Howell? Dawn and Steve, okay. You've answered her questions. Okay, thank you. See, 3 minutes done. Angela Camley?
I'm sorry, disregard. I thought it was assigned.
Okay. Gerald and Diane Schrammick?
No, we thought it was a sign-in sheet as well.
Oh, 3 for 3. Vince Grecky?
I'll just speak for Vince.
Okay.
He thought it was a sign-in, so it takes five. I'm Kevin Loeffler.
Mr. Loeffler, would you mind stepping up to the podium?
Hello. I'm Kevin Leffler. I actually own the property on the corner of Chicago Bloomington Trail and Parker. And I live in a house just to the east of that intersection as well. Both houses were built in the mid-1800s, late 1800s. My barn and my small farmhouse, I think they're 32 feet from the road. We get a turn lane, we're gonna lose those barns, for sure. My barn will be gone, my house will be gone. On record, Mark Twain was in my house signing books back in, I don't know exactly when, 1920 something. So the road will probably be about 20 feet from my house, the big beautiful oak tree that everybody stops in the fall and literally traffic jam people taking pictures of the oak tree, as well as my barns. The oak tree will be gone. My barn, if it's not gone, it's gonna be probably 11 feet from the road, or maybe 4 feet from whatever sidewalk. So this is really important to me as well. I think this part of our corridor is kind of the crown jewel of Homer Glen. My one neighbor says on Saturday and Sundays, everybody that drives by are just people out for a nice Sunday drive, not because they're trying to get to work necessarily. And we talk about longevity of the road and the impact of the traffic. It's 45 miles an hour in front of my house, 45 miles an hour. The cars are generally doing about 55. So if we slow down, they're gonna go to where they're supposed to go, 159th Street, Route 6, and it's gonna have less impact on the road. We don't have a whole lot of accidents. The shoulder issue that everybody keeps talking about, I've been there for 30 years. I have a steep shoulder. I've never had a car in my ditch ever, even in the winter. And they're doing 45 miles an hour. Imagine if we slow down, how much safer the road will actually be. A few site improvements, just cutting down a few bushes, and instead of a four-way signal at our intersection, let's just try maybe illuminated stop sign, or cut down the bush so you can see the sign, instead of just going to this main extreme, putting a turn lane, turnabout, and stop and go lights. Well, we could try something first to see if maybe that will slow some people down or make the intersection a little safer, and then just simply a little bit of patrol. I mean, you know, I know we don't have a lot of police and it costs money as well, but there's zero patrol in the area. Nobody ever gets a ticket. You could do 110 miles an hour in front of my house all day long and you'll never get stopped once.
Lieutenant, are you listening?
I've talked to them. I said you could sit in my driveway. They don't. I mean, but that's my 2 cents. Again, I think it's part of the crown jewel of Homer Glen. And I like what you say, we all live in this community together. And if they're fixing drainage on the north side of town, I'm involved in that, I'm paying for that. And if we're building parks, I am as well. So I'm really looking for your help to preserve this, because I'm gonna lose my property, and eminent domain, they're gonna take it. What are they gonna give me for it? God only knows what, but it'll be gone forever. So thank you very much.
Mr. Loeffler?
Yeah.
We asked everyone to write down if they live in the village of Homer Glen, and we know everyone lives in the township, but you live in the village of Homer Glen, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Again, I've been here for 30 years. I was here before it was Homer Glen, and we love living here. My daughter just bought a house down the street from us, and we'd really like to stay here, but if that road comes up to my house, I'm out of here. I'm not going to stay. There's no way.
We're not losing you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Lieutenant Taylor, where will you be tomorrow? Deborah Sprecher? Did I say that right? Oh, okay. James, did you think the same thing? Okay. Borello?
Sorry, I half signed my name and then decided I should probably print it. A couple of things where I had no intention of speaking. I also thought it was a sign-in, but after hearing a few things. First of all, I thought Melissa King did a phenomenal job. I thought that was a great presentation, so thank you for that. For me, I think it's about controlling our destiny, right? I think that's an important part of this. Left in Will County's hands, what are they gonna, they're gonna wanna pay for it with federal funds, and when they pay for it with federal funds, that man loses his barn, right? So I think that's a big part of it, is controlling our own destiny. And there has been several references to these residents Again, it's not about these residents, it's about all the residents of Homer Glen, and we should be thinking about the whole village of Homer Glen, not just these residents. So I would encourage everyone to keep that in mind as you're thinking about this. So, thank you.
Thank you. Steve and Debbie Sansone? Telemago? RT? Some funny looking letter, LL? Is that anybody? On 13523 is the beginning of your address? Okay, well, if I miss you, then come back and stand up and say I missed you. Jack and Sharon Fultz?
You've addressed a lot of what I've had to say, or what is needed to be said. The one question I have for some of you trustees is, if the roadway was going to go 40 foot closer to your house, would you be for that? You don't need to reply, I'm just throwing it out there. Where we live in Homer Glen, we are 4th, 5th, and 6th generation of farmhouse off that road. The end of our property is part of that 4th, 5th, and 6th generation. Our great-grandparents were born in that house. It's 150 years plus. We have just started baling hay again. My sons have decided they wanted to start farming it again. And it's not big, it's only 24 acres. But we're just trying to bring back the farm life again, the farm feel. When you think of Homer Glen, you look around and the people that are coming to Homer Glen are coming through our community because they see Homer Glen as the country road of the life. They want to get away from the urban sprawl. But if you go anywhere else other than Parker, Hadley, Chicago, Bloomington, Bruce Road, Lawfer Road, Haas Road, I know those are Mokina, but this is the area that will bring people here. Look at the houses that have been built on Parker Road, on the 10 plus acres. Look at all the houses that have been on Parker Road between Chicago, Bloomington, and 159th. Look at what's gone on, all the development that's been going on. It's because people are coming in and seeing this country feel and getting away from the urban sprawl. Now, you don't have that same feeling when you go down 151st. You don't have that same feeling when you go down 143rd, even though you have farms on each side and it's wide open. Now, you go down Cream, you've got that feeling again. And this is what we seem to lose, is that the people want to feel relaxed when they come through. And so that's kind of where we are here. If you talk about traffic safety, but what's going to happen when you lower the ridges and the hills so that you have better line of sight? They're already going 50, 60, 70 miles an hour to see how fast they can go from Mr. Loeffler's property down to the curve on Hadley Road till they get to Bell Road. I can't tell you how many times the green Maserati, the green or the Corvettes are going through there just to see how fast they can get from one end to the other. I talked to an IDOT engineer today, and I said, why don't you guys ever put, because the project I'm working on right now is at 143rd and Bell, doing the natural gas expansion through there for the road widening. And so the IDOT people that were there, and I said, so how come you guys wouldn't be interested in putting a three-way stop at Lawfer Road, which was formerly Bruce, and Chicago Bloomington? Why wouldn't you be in favor of putting a three-way stop sign at Bell Road and Hadley Road? And he goes, well, we don't like to slow traffic down. We don't want to have a bottleneck put up there. But it's all about safety. That's what it's all about. Okay, you got these sharp turns. Well, we need to straighten those out so that people can have an easier time getting through there. An easier time just means they're going to go faster. So that's the line of sight thing is an issue that if we lower those ridges down, then that's just going to make people drive faster. And I understand at Bell Road and Hadley Road, if you look off to the left, you do have that ridge there. Was that a design flaw when they installed it? Of course it was. Just like it was a design flaw when the state of Illinois put Haas Road and Route 6, they stopped the bridge before they got to Haas Road. Now you've got a blind spot on your left side as traffic's doing 60+ miles an hour through there. All they had to do was go another 500 feet to make that whole intersection the same level, and you could have looked in both directions. And that's what the whole point is going to be here, is to slow traffic down, not speed it up on Chicago, Bloomington, Hadley Road. And so that's why, think about if it was your road and you're losing 40 feet of your property to have it 11 feet off your barn or into your front yard, or the house that's across the corner of Hadley and Chicago, Bloomington and Lawford Road. If they were to straighten that curve out, he's going to lose probably 50 feet of his backyard that's fenced in. And then you're going to have the wildlife, the deer that are going to be endangered because of all the traffic speeding up. It's bad enough as it is now. So just, instead of thinking about we're those people who live on that side of town because it's only 300 driveways or however many driveways it is, like Mr. Loeffler said, we're still paying taxes on all the improvements and developments that's going on in Homer Glen. And so, you know, we don't want to be the redheaded stepchild that's out here all by ourselves. We're fighting to at least prolong the image of Homer Glen, because when people drive through our area, that's what they see Homer Glen as. Not a wide open 120-foot right-of-way that could maybe someday be a 4-lane road in every direction. And I'm grateful that we have this road. We've got Bankston's doing a wonderful job. We've got Kono's doing a wonderful job bringing people in, and that's our tax base. We've got shopping centers. We've got more restaurants and more businesses that are coming into Homer Glen because people are moving here because of areas like ours that have that country feel. And so that's all that I have to say on that.
Thank you. Did Sharon Foltz want to speak? No? Okay. Kathy Pecora?
Hi, I am a resident of Oak Valley, but I take the corridor every day back and forth to work. I've never been stuck in a traffic jam in the height of rush hour at 5:30, 6 o'clock. It's one of my, you know, treasures of where I live and of our village. And so I just certainly hope that we can seek alternate funding sources from different government departments, from federal departments like the EPA, specifically because we're preserving trees. So there's a lot of avenues out there for funding. I work for Will County Land Use Department, so I'm familiar with that. And there are opportunities, but we definitely need to save this road as is. Again, one of the esteemed gentlemen that spoke so wisely about sightlines, we can hang flashing signs. There are old school techniques to protect the travelers of that road. But I just wanted to put my 2 cents in there to say that I love this road. This is my home until I'm taken out feet first. So, you know, please consider that 5 to 10 year remaining useful life is significant, allowing plans to occur, because if the county's got money to do their planning and have shovels in the ground, then their plans are going to be done by then. I believe it's our obligation as a village to save this jewel and to start our planning now as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Joanne and Larry Hassett?
I really thought it was just a sign.
Okay.
But I'm all for safety. Everything everyone has said here is exactly what we need. Keep it the same. Just make it safe.
Thank you. Mark, is there a Mark on Burr Oak? Oh, are you going to speak, Mark?
No, this is Joe Hazlett.
Oh.
We've been out here since 1970.
Would you like to come up to the podium? No. I could hear your husband. I just can't hear you.
I wasn't planning on this, but I'm very motivated to say something. We've been out here since 1975. We have had the highway commissioner out to our house when it was Latz, and with Jeff as well, many times. They wouldn't even, they want to spend the money for this, but they wouldn't even spend the money to put up a battery light that would be able to be seen for safety, or like at the stop signs that are needed. There's more to this that we don't know, and they're not telling us. But I do agree that if we take money, federal money, there's going to be a lot of payoffs. We've had over 300 accidents right at the curve where DeBoer Woods is and where Hadley meets 167th. We've had police in our entrance to our driveway. We told him, you're in the vector of that road. The speed limit is so high here, you're going to get hit. Well, the officer did move the car. We've been involved with getting the chevron signs up personally, the reflectors in the road, and the speed limit reduced twice at Springfield. It's just a mess. We've had cars that have been abandoned. We had a beautiful barn that was burnt down by a drunk driver because he was driving so fast. And it was dated back to 1890. It was a beautiful barn. And it was going on the Historical Society. But 3 days after it was supposed to go on, someone hit it. And we could not afford to continue to restore it, which we already did because we were retiring and didn't have the income to continue to put money into it. So I'm very much against any federal funds. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, back to Mark. Is Mark in there, out there? Mark on Burr Oak? No? Okay. Kurt Waller? He left. He left? Okay. Scott Perry?
I belong to the village. I'm just having trouble understanding what's different in terms of the road condition. Talk about this road's going to have to be replaced in 5 to 10 years from every other road in the village. I drive the roads in the village and, you know, I notice no significant difference between this road and most other roads in the village. You know, so if roads have to be replaced, we're all in it together. You know, we all share the risk. And 4 more miles out of the, what, 200 and some miles or whatever that we have, to me isn't going to significantly change the equation. We're all in together, we all deal with it, and this is just 4 more miles that the people in the village, I think, you know, need and desire to have the village take over. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know, what do you? I'm going to, Sidin is the last name? C-I-D-E-N? What is that first name?
Yael.
Okay.
So we live right off of Chicago Bloomington and Crystal Lake Drive, so it's like the Indy 500. You need to kind of pay attention to stand there for a bit. You'll catch a lot of
Poor
people
Jeff.
make so much money for the village, because at 45 miles an hour is really like, I don't know, 60, 70, or whatever it is it takes. And then it goes into like 15 mile an hour, really sharp curve there, and then back to 45. So I have a couple of questions. One is, like, if the speed limit is a lot lower, like it is on either side, 35 miles an hour, right? I mean, does the road really need, first of all, it's a lot less wear and tear. It's a whole lot safer, okay? And does it need that much expansion? Isn't it like a little county road, like one of these smaller roads that you just go 35 miles an hour, or maybe if you're speeding a little faster, but at least not 70, okay? And then crashing and burning there. The other question I have for the village is how many roads does the village percentage-wise own versus like not owning this one? Because I didn't realize that it was such a division in the village.
Are you asking how many miles are in the village of Homer Glen?
No, I'm asking how many of Homer Glen roads are owned by the village? managed by the village?
130 miles of road, I believe is what we have. But how many are in the village that we don't? Man, 18. Well, no, because that's part of, yeah, that's township. Sure. That's a great question.
Can you show me?
Look at that, personal service.
Wow, look at this.
The colored roads, they're kind of here, Will County and state. So you'll see, this is it, and then all these gray roads are ours.
Okay. Wow. I need to like send a copy of this to everyone because like we happen to be a minority that we're not like, we're like this sad little like stepchildren or something. So
You can't put it on the screen, right?
So-
There's no way?
No, I don't think so.
That's okay. I don't think there's a way.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I think that I didn't realize that the village owned so many roads and that we weren't a part of it. And I feel like, out of all these roads, like we actually do represent a lot of what Homer Glen is about. And I think that, yeah, you know what? You should own this road. We should own this road. So, sorry, that was my ignorance. I didn't realize that.
No, that's okay. Thank
all
you.
right. Thank you.
Thank you. Where am I? Ed Kepa? Sepa? Okay. Mike Hoan? Am I saying any of these names right?
Really close.
What's that?
Last name's Hohen. It was close.
Okay.
But my name's Mike Hohen. I live at 180th and Parker. My wife and I raised our family not at that property, but in the area. My kids are gone now and actually living in New Lenox, Francis, not too far. But my wife and I, when we've had horses our whole life, one of the reasons, for many years, we always were attracted to Parker Road. And we boarded horses just down the road from us with the bare mailbox that everybody, knows, which is just another part of the road, right, to see that mailbox. But one of our dreams was to be on Parker Road with our horses, our grandkids, and we were able to, get our perfect place to us. Unfortunately, I lost my wife 5 years ago, just after we moved in. But she had such a passion for it, and so much so that she did the history, the farm. We were part of a farm back in the day that were subdivided. It used to be a gravel road back in the day. Jerry and Judy, I don't think they're here. My neighbors to the south, and they've been there, raised their family, I think their whole entire life. But to learn all of the history on Parker Road, it's very comforting. I will say the concern is, for me, if the county takes it, there's a motive to it. I can't understand why this particular road is so interesting to make all these improvements on all of a sudden. I did go to the Bible church, the very first meeting, met a lot of neighbors that didn't even know I had there. And, one of the things, they were talking about safety, and I'm all about safety. There were no fatalities. That was part of their study, that which was important to me, but no fatalities were listed. I've never seen any accidents other than, I think, by Kevin's place there, at that corner that can be, a little challenging maybe for some drivers for some reason. But if you take the road and widen it, you give it to the county and you let them do what they're ultimately going to do, and it's going to be devastating. My house is set back a little bit, but I would lose my trees that have been there over 100 years, not as big as the oak tree, the beautiful oak on Chicago Bloom and Parker, but they've been there for many, many years. They've tagged 6 of them. And I think they would be taken out only because they are kind of close to the road. But the safety today is so important. I went to Myers and Homer Glen, and there was a sheriff in the parking lot, and I actually stopped to talk to him and say, hey, I don't know, staffing, whatever, but my bedroom windows are on the Parker side, and you can almost set your watch to at 1 o'clock in the morning. It's 100 miles an hour plus. Cars are flying down there, and these are high-end cars. I'm not saying they're Corvettes. I think they're more even higher end than that. Constant. You could set your watch to it. The speed is one thing, but my neighbors, Mikey, right across the street from me, his house is right on the road. And if they widen that and you have people driving faster because you just made it easier for them to drive faster and more convenient, if they lost control, they're going to be in the front of his house. And they're not going to have any trees to block them, if something would happen like that. It's a scary situation. And, I really would love to see the speed limit lowered. Maybe it would deter people from doing it, and maybe if the word got out that, hey, don't speed on Parker Road, don't speed on Chicago Bloom, because there's speed traps everywhere. I think we all know certain areas where there are speed traps, but it's a major safety issue, and if this continues to go to the county, I can see it only getting worse. And they want to do this for safety. I think it's the opposite. I really do. And I hope the board does the right thing, make the right decision for everybody that's sitting in here today. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Brent Woods, do you have something?
I'm sorry for the interruption. Those of you I passed out, I didn't bring enough maps for everybody. I apologize for that. I will make this map available in PDF format I'll give it to our webmaster to put on the website. And then I can make paper copies available for people who want a paper copy here at Village Hall.
Thank you. I have a question for the residents. By show of hands, how many people have reached out to the county and had asked for the road speed limit to be lowered? And has it been lowered? Okay. Thank you. I'm just curious. And then if we were to take over the road, we would have complete jurisdiction over the speed limit. Okay. Okay, Heidi Pacella?
Hi, I'm Heidi. Can I sit this right there? Sure. All right, thanks. I'm here to read a couple of notes from people that couldn't make it.
Sure.
Okay, this one is from Angela Howe. She said, increasing the size of a Hadley Road not only interferes with the wildlife and mature trees, it will infringe upon the properties of many established homes with driveways on Hadley Road. One of the homes is my in-laws that live right next door. Removing established trees and changing the appearance of our beautiful nature preserved area would ruin why we chose to live here. My in-laws live at 12546 Hadley Road, and widening that road 50 feet per the first proposed option that shows removing half their yard on that side. They have lived here in the country-like setting since 1972, over 50 years. Angela and Mike have lived at 16905 South Bell Road, next door to them. Their driveway is on Bell Road, right off of Hadley Road. Our driveway will be affected if Hadley Road becomes a high-traffic road. 159th is a 4-lane east-west road, 1 mile north of Hadley. I see no reason why Hadley needs to change, excuse me, to change in any way. Will County should use their federal funding elsewhere. Please don't interfere with the reasons we chose to live here. Thank you. That's from Angela. And then, thank you to Angela. And then Angela's, I believe, mother-in-law, Judith, the house she was talking about that have lived there for 50 years, this is her note. Judith could not be here. Judith Howe She said, I have lived on this corner of Hadley and Bell since 1972. I do not understand why our road is needed when traffic could go down Will Cook Road at more of a straight shot rather than try to straighten out these harsh curves. There already is plenty of traffic on this road. We need no more. Also, like previously stated, Route 6 is already a well-known road. 159th is already established, so let it take on the traffic. Hadley does not have problems with people speeding and accidents. A flashing light, reduced speed signs, and/or three-way stop signs would help, especially keeping our area countrified, which means keep it rural, and taking 50 feet into my yard would leave my home close to the road. That is from Judith Howe, and I have copies for you. And I wasn't gonna say anything myself, but to touch on the traffic, I did my own on Hadley Road with an AI camera, and it was 1,200 cars. And their traffic study says 3,400.
That's why I asked, because I remember you had that conversation, and it was much less.
And plus, there's no trucks, so
yeah,
that's a big difference because one truck equals lots and lots of cars. And I was going to touch base on the historic thing, but I might not because it's going to be really boring. But technically, it's called a landmark district. If anyone wants to look that up, and federal funding protects the structure. So if someone has something historical, they would register it themselves or have someone do it for them. And any projects that are federally funded would protect the structure. It wouldn't prevent a project, but obviously there's other things to do, conservation, easement, things like that. But I just wanted to make that clear. But here's the copies of the letters.
Thank you, Heidi. Russ Petrizzo, first mayor of Homer Glen, welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad that you had this meeting tonight because you can see if this, first of all, this has to be done immediately. Otherwise, that sign that we did in 2001, take the tree out because we don't deserve to have that tree on there. This, even to discuss this in the special assessments, which is an insult to everybody here, we pay taxes for everything. First of all, let me give you some idea. Will County is a fox in sheep's clothing. Let me tell you why. When you drive from Homer through Orland, they just repaved that last year. You needed a Jeep to drive on that road. And anybody can tell they drive down that road. What did they do? Did they fix the shoulders? No. They cut the road and they just skimmed the road and repaved it. It's beautiful. So what Will County is telling you is a lie. That road right now does not have to be fixed. And let me tell you why, what's going on here. It just came to me after looking at all these maps. When I was mayor, they wanted to have Haas Road an exit on I-80. To come through down Haas Road, which would be 4 lanes, cutting through, everybody knows Mr. Ozinga's property, they were gonna take down his house, this is 4 lanes by the way, and go down to South Bell Road, 4 lanes, and then cut to 159th Street. So what I'm seeing here, because there's nothing wrong with that road, Will County wants to put an exit on I-80, and this is something future, and it's gonna just destroy our whole community there. Because, okay, you don't have money to fix this, what are you gonna do with South Bell? How much traffic is gonna go down South Bell? You're gonna have to fix that road. You're gonna have to fix Parker. These are not made for high traffic, a lot of vehicles. Lower the tonnage on that road. Have the trucks 5 tons or whatever. Slow the speed limit. That road does not have to be fixed in 5 years. They're selling us a bunch of baloney. There's enough fertilizer there to take care of all the farms in Homer Glen. They're lying to us. There's a future. They have a commitment here to widen that for truck traffic. So it's got to be something with New Lenox, but we got to stop this now. You have to take this over now. Your cost is not going to be that much. And again, just look at what Cook County did on 167th in Orland. They just repaved it. They didn't redo the shoulders, and that was done last year. So if it was such a thing of highway safety, why didn't they commit to that? So I've been there 38 years with my wife. We've been driving that road. There's been accidents, yes, but there's no backup traffic. There's accidents once in a while. It's a beautiful road. And please, you have to do this now. You have to do this now. Thank you.
Thank you. And, sorry, Mr. Petrizzo, I want to say thank you for extending, for responding to me of you and previous Mayor George Yukich on writing a letter together to the county. So I do want to say thank you for that. Matt and Emily Weathered. Matt?
My name is Matt Weathered. My wife and I live in the village on West Chicago, Bloomington Trail. Homer Glen was incorporated a short 22 years ago to save the semi-rural charm of the area. Leaving this important corridor in the hands of the county is a terrible idea. They've already demonstrated their opaque and rushed plans to turn the residential road to essentially a major trucking route for the newly developed warehouses and industrial parks near I-80 and 355. We incorporated 2 decades ago, and we have you as our representatives, principally to prevent this sort of sprawl from happening. I think we have reasonable through routes for trucks with the developed highways on 159th and Route 6. I don't understand why the county wants this. And as we have demonstrated with our FOIA requests, it doesn't seem like anyone knows why. But the previous mayor kind of alluded to it, possibly. I would propose the village immediately annexes the road if possible. If not, just extend the pause on the county's phase 1 of the project indefinitely so that the village of Homer Glen can perform their own due diligence and above board phase 1 study to assess the village taxpayers' cost. I think most of the taxpayers would agree that the beautiful trees and people's private property and sanity are an important use of taxpayer dollars. And I would argue that the roadway buoys a lot of people's property values along the roadway and would be happy to pay if necessary. Yeah, and as was previously discussed at the previous village board meeting, there are plenty of grants to pay for road construction, and if not, pay for other funding projects that we can move that money towards maintaining the road. But I don't think that the corridor needs to be all repaved at once. I think it's plenty robust for the foreseeable future, and we can budget money to maintain the road. And I'd like to thank the mayor and the board members who are in support of preserving the road. And that's it.
Thank you. Emily, would you like to come up too? You're good? Okay. Sue Maloney.
Hi there, Sue Maloney. I'm one of those people. I live on Hadley, right in the middle of all this. My property will definitely be impacted. I will lose my fence and about 50 trees, which is really sad if it goes forward. Additionally, it will impact our subdivision signage and our entrance. I think the number one thing, which obviously Ross more eloquently put, is that Will County can't keep this road. If they do, this will move forward. Nothing is going to stop them. The historical status, nothing. And you know why? It's because of the way it started. They spent $2 million to study this, and it was proposed as a reconstruction with a categorical exclusion. They believe this. And that means it requires demonstrating low impact on the environment and the adjacent landowners. This is what their goal is in this study. This is what the engineers and the consultants, that's their goal, is to prove this. And once they prove that, it will move forward. We don't have as much time as you think. Once they get to the design phase, it's too late. So now is the time. There's two options. Homer Glen takes it, or the village, or the township. Those are the two options. I have some specific questions about some of the numbers in the presentation. I wish we would all stop throwing around this $20 million number, because it is not real. And I think it scares everybody, and it clouds their thinking to what is reality. The other number I just kind of glanced at, it was quick, was, did I see that you proposed that it would be an additional person to help deal with the 4-mile acquisition of $72,000 a year to deal with the 4-mile acquisition, right? That was in the presentation. Okay, so my question for you. In 2020, when we acquired, as a village, 135 miles from the township, how many people did you hire to handle 135 miles? Right? Does it make sense? 4 miles is a person at 72,000, but we can acquire 135? How many people did you hire? 15, 20? Doesn't make any sense to me. So I think there's a lot of numbers in this presentation that we really need to drill down to and make sure they're correct before we present them to the village. My last comment is about the federal funds. I am not one to ask for federal funds. I prefer the federal government to stay out of my business. However, we at least need to spend the time to investigate the understanding of the 3R project, okay? It was mentioned in the presentation. It was mentioned and basically said, oh, it can be hard to get. That's it? We need to research it more, just to make sure people understand that 3R is rehabilitation, restoration, and resurfacing to extend the life of the road and enhance the safety. Basically, it's the perfect scenario for Hadley, and we have a chance to prove that, because we could get away from the extreme proposal that they are saying in the original contract. So I'm just asking you to at least spend some time and energy looking into 3R, because you never know if we could actually get some funds and have, less impact to that road. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I have two questions. Oh, okay, hold on 1 second, ma'am. I have a question on the $2 million study. Did we get a copy of that?
I think that's their design component of their budget. That's for the phase 1.
Are we able to have access to that?
I think that's part of all those documents and all that study that's happening right now.
Okay.
That's not been released.
Okay. And Mr. Woods or
some of it, so there is some, I was looking at there's some crash stuff.
Yeah.
The stuff that was presented at the first public meeting is linked from our website and on their project website. So there's some very preliminary information, but it's not very comprehensive.
Okay. And then Mr. Woods or Melissa, would you like to respond to the last person's sentiments on the 72,000?
Sure. The number of 72,000. Well, let me back up. To start with, when this Public Works was the road district, there were, from the highway commissioner on down, there were 21 employees that worked in the department. Today there are 16. I have a road crew of 12. They had 15 on the road crew. So we're doing more with fewer people in order to take on, and we may have to, certainly I'd like to get another employee in that department anyway, but if we take on additional roads, we're definitely going to have to get another employee. It's not just the snow plowing, it's not just the repairs on the road, it's the mowing. The mowing takes a long time as well. So it's not, we're not proposing to hire another employee just for this road, but this would stretch, the department's already stretched to its capacity. If we take on any new roads, we're going to need more employees. So that's where that number came from. And in terms of we didn't hire anybody for 130 miles of road. They were all came over from the road district, except for a handful, and then some retirements that we didn't fill. So we do have fewer people now than when it was the township.
Can you clarify how many employees do work for you, Director Woods?
Including me on down, there's 16. And that includes the office staff. We have an office staff of 1 and a superintendent, and then the road crews.
Okay.
Can I also clarify something? Sure. I think when I was presenting, I know that I think our staff and the village engineer, Brett Westcott, and myself do understand that there are avenues, right? There are different ways to structure these projects. I think that what I was really trying to get at for this board to understand is that if it's not under our control, that the likelihood of making Will County decide to ask for those, number one, push for all the things that we would want for protection is probably slim. So I think that our staff has talked in our office, if the village board did pursue jurisdictional transfer, that we would be advising and digging deeper into what all those things are and all of our options, because we would want to pursue that. But I think, so just to clarify where staff's head was on the presentation.
Thank you. I know there was a woman in the back that had a statement, but I want to get through everyone else first, and then we can come back, okay? Andy Pinelli.
Thank you, Mayor and the board, and thank you, Melissa, for a great presentation. Andy Pinelli with the Deborah Woods Homeowners Association. We've got a couple of households that are directly impacted by this, and our entranceway is also potentially compromised by the proposed plan. I came here with just one big question, and that really was, is there a path forward to accomplish having the road resurfaced or rebuilt in an as-is basis? You know, and it sounds like there is, if the village takes it over. And I'm not sure that I heard that there's another alternative really to try to make that happen. It may not have the shoulders in an as-is condition that are ideal, but that it theoretically is possible and could be pursued and be functional. From our standpoint, that's what we desire. We desire the road to remain the same, that the trees that are marked be saved, that the land not be confiscated from our members, and to maintain the character of the village, and especially not making a speedy shortcut from, you know, Orland to Route 6 through our neighborhood. Now, you know, the speed limits have been mentioned. We absolutely support 35-mile-an-hour speed limits, and you may consider an alternate source of funding, you know, putting some speed traps in there someplace. It just takes 5,000 tickets to resurface that road that you need that $1 million for, and I'll bet you can get them.
That would be one summer.
But that's right. Better slow down. So you know, as an outcome of this meeting, and thank you again for listening to us, is that we are very anxious to clearly understand the additional information that this board needs to make the decision. And I know there's going to be differing opinions on this, and we need the board to come to a consensus as quickly as possible. We'd like to know, in recap, what information do you need to make the commitment? How long is it going to take to get that information? And if there's a way that we can help you in your task, whether it's assessing, you know, this historical preservation route, or, you know, whatever the challenges are, you know, 3R or whatever it is, how can we help you keep momentum going to make the decision and come to a conclusion as quickly as you can? And then finally, how do we keep the lines of communication open between yourselves and your final decision on this and these members that are here tonight and the many that are here that want us to pursue in this direction that can't be here tonight. So we're looking forward to trying to get those questions answered. And as Mayor Patrizio said, that and others had mentioned, that it seems to me, and what we heard at the Bible church meeting was that any change in plan had to be made before phase 2 was announced. We think the clock is ticking. There is a sense of urgency on coming to a conclusion, although there may not be a sense of urgency as much to try to figure out how to secure the funding, but that it's feasible to secure the funding, and we appreciate that. Thank you for your diligence and efforts on this and trying to get those final questions answered for us and open those lines of communication. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have a couple of questions following that. When does phase 2 begin?
I don't know the answer to that. I know the next phase of public
I believe it's on pause right now, but
unofficially.
Unofficially, but did they have a set date to begin phase 2?
No, I'm looking on the website right now. I just know that the next public meeting is scheduled generally in November.
Okay.
But we can find that out. I'll keep looking here.
Okay, and Mr. Pinelli, you were exactly right. I was going to state that at the end. We may have time to find out the funding, but we don't have time to make a decision. So we need to figure this out. I'm going to request that the board members set a date to make a decision on this, and we'll go through that more at the end of the meeting after everyone's done talking. Mikey Smith.
Hello. I believe during Melissa's presentation, you said the county said this is the second highest amount of engagement that they've ever had in a public project. Parker Road, I'm on Parker Road, and so Parker Road is my front yard, and I believe the highest engagement the county has ever seen is the cemetery, which is in my backyard. So, and my goal here isn't to give you my sob story, because who cares about me, right? My point is, why is this the highest amount of engagement the entire county of Will County has seen ever? It's because there's something special here. There's something magical about this particular area that all of the residents are willing to create as much ruckus as they have on 2 different projects to break all of the county records and precedent to say that they actually care. So you have something special here. Let's hold on to that. Let's protect that. I currently am in the township. I'm unincorporated Homer, so I'm not one of your residents. I can't tell you to do this as people who represent me, because you don't. I'm unincorporated. But 10 years ago, and for 7 years after that, I lived in northwest Homer Glen. I was a resident for 7 years, about as far away from this as you can possibly be and still be in the village. I could a stone's throw to the village of Lamont, but I was in the village. And for 7 years, I drove out of my way anytime I was going south to drive down Parker Road, because it's the most beautiful drive in the area. And I spent 7 years dreaming of living there one day, and now I actually do. And there was a time where I obviously moved, and I had the opportunity. I could have moved out of state, get rid of all of the Illinois garbage politics, and I could have gone to Indiana or Missouri or Wisconsin. I had opportunities elsewhere, but I chose to stay in Illinois and deal with all of the Illinois garbage because there was something beautiful about Homer Glen and about this particular road. So that's why I'm still here. But it's not just me, because again, who cares about me? So let's step out into the street in front of my house and just look around at all the other houses that you can see from my property line. And I'll tell you about other families that are 30-year-old-ish, 30 to 40, with kids. I can see my neighbor Bob's house, who's moved here in the last 3 years. I can see, and his wife, my neighbor Paul and his wife and their kids, my neighbor Brian and his wife and their kids, my neighbor Sam and his wife. All of them have moved to this road in the last 3 years because there's something special here. And that's what we want you to hang on to. So I have people pull into my driveway, complete strangers, asking if I'll sell them my house because they want to live there. This is a regular occurrence. Once a month, someone asks me to sell my house. Once a week, I get a realtor mailing me something in my mailbox, asking if I'm willing to sell. I've had people who pulled into my driveway, I've gotten in the car with them and driven around the neighborhood and said, hey, I've seen that house up for sale once in a while. I've met people just wanting to live in this area because it is something special and something magical. And it doesn't just benefit us, it benefits the entire village because we're the draw of anyone who wants to live in your village. So the real question isn't really, how are you going to pay for the road? The real question is, who wants to live in your village if you don't?
That's a great question. Thank you, Mikey. I've got another question for the residents. By show of hands, how many of you would lose any of your property if this were to go through? I just wanted a visual for the board. Thank you. Moving on to Josh Myers. No? Josh, leave us. Edna Piccoloni? That's a fun last name. How do you actually say it?
Piccolini.
Oh, I'm totally off. But that's fun too.
It is. I just wanted to say thank you for having this workshop and for your presentation to give us the information that we had been asking for in the past, and we appreciate your support. I think by now, I don't want to beat the dead horse here or pat the bunny, but most everyone that we have talked to, the residents that live on the road or even other residents in the village, care deeply about it. And actually, collectively, I do care about you and your story because I have a story and everyone here has a story. And as Mikey said, I will sell my house if this happens. I will lose trees that are over 100 years old. Those aren't coming back. They're gone. They're not going to come back. Historic properties, the first post office, the first blacksmith shop, that's not going to come back. It'll be gone. And we all can vote, and we all live here for a reason, and we have an environmental committee, and it all ultimately comes down to money, right? No matter what, we need to have the money. Now, we all pay taxes. You know, my taxes pay for things that help you and everybody here, and we need to have a collective community voice and care about people and what's happening to people, because if we don't, what's the point, right? Why are we here? You know, so anyway, that's all I wanted to say, and thank you.
Thank you. Robert Chilcutt? I'm terrible. No? He used to be your neighbor? You want to call him and see if he wants to speak? Beth Verdon?
Hi, thank you, Mayor and trustees and staff members for your presentation tonight and for hosting this workshop for all the residents of Homer Glen and specifically my neighbors, who I care about very much. Details matter, and a lot of people have talked about a few of those details, and I'm going to reiterate a few of those myself this evening. I did submit a letter to Christina Kopkowski, the project manager for this proposal for Will County Department of Transportation. I did submit it at the public meeting that was held previously, so you can go back and review my letter, along with all the documents that I submitted that supported my details. A lot of my neighbors have done the same thing for other areas of this project, but here's why some of these details matter for my neighbors. We talked about widening, we talked about changing the vertical grades, and all those things do is invite higher speed traffic and not lower speed traffic in the area, and it degrades the rural character as we know it. A couple things that I wanted to clarify, and I did point them out again in my public letter, is that the pavement conditions that were reported in the slide deck by the county state that The road, Parker-Hadley Road corridor, was last resurfaced or reconstructed in 1981, which is 42 years ago. That's misleading because it was actually resurfaced between 1999 and 2001. I've been living here on Parker Road since 1992, and we were renovating our home at the time that they resurfaced this road. So the current pavement that's on there is not 42 years old, it's 21 years old. So that was misleading. The other thing that I did when I submitted my information in my letter to the county, which this village board has a copy of, is that when I looked at the traffic analysis component, I looked at the 2007 Village of Homer Glen transportation plan. I compared it to the January 2023 average daily traffic counts and the 2006 published average daily traffic counts that were included by the county for this proposal, and I found the following, and I just want to reiterate them again. Between then and now, January of 2023, 3% decrease on Chicago Bloomington Trail from Parker to Hadley Road from 2006. 46% decrease on Hadley from Bell to Wilcook Road from 2006. 17% decrease on Parker from Chicago Bloomington Trail to US Route 6 from 2006. I couldn't do a direct comparison of 167th Street because they didn't provide data to compare apples to apples. So, and again, Heidi talked about doing some independent studies in front of her home, and those support lower traffic counts as well. Here's the other thing that counts. When Trustee Reinders and Trustee Mason talked about inflated numbers, I agree with that, and here's why. Again, if we're looking at not using federal funding for something like this, you're going to bring those numbers down right away because we're not going to have to do the construction standards that are required for that federal funding. When Director King first started presenting this evening, she talked and indicated that the county does not consider this a widening project. It is a widening project for them because anytime you take a road that has 20-foot wide pavement and a 2-foot wide gravel shoulder, and you change it to one of the standards that they proposed, 24-foot wide pavement and an 8-foot wide paved shoulder, that's increasing the width, and that's a widening project. The other idea that they had was to use a curb and gutter in the roadway as an alternative. That does not provide a safe area for motorists to pull off the roadway, and that also provides for significant grading that's going to disrupt the rural character and have significant widening of the roadway. When we talk about inflating the numbers, again, the county proposal talks about providing for sidewalk areas and bike paths in this area, okay? We have all these bike paths that are multi-use trailers for wheeled bikes and horses that run in the Forest Preserve District. When we looked at revising the comprehensive plan and put our proposals and did the studies with the residents, we filled this room with people who wanted to know what were the things that we could do. And in this area, one of them was to increase the trails. None of the trail proposals that we came up with for the comprehensive plan proposal said go down Parker Road and Chicago Bloomington Trail and Hadley Road and put bike paths in front of people's homes. You're again making safety, that is not a safety priority. You have bicycles going in front of people's homes, as many homes as we have in that stretch, that's not safe as well. We have plenty of opportunities. We have existing paths that run along the Commonwealth Edison right-of-way. We don't need paved bike paths or sidewalks. Who needs a sidewalk on Parker Road? Because we don't have any amenities to go to. The reason we moved out here is so that we didn't have to live next door to grocery stores and gas stations and shopping centers. I don't need a sidewalk in front of my house to go down to the liquor store. I can get in my car and go down there and buy a 6-pack of beer if I want to. I can get in my car and come up north and go to the grocery store. I don't need a sidewalk on Parker Road to go anywhere. If I want to walk to my neighbor's house, I walk through the yard. If it's far because we're 5 acres apart, I get in my car and I go there. So again, these numbers are inflated. I completely feel that they're inflated. The only other thing that I wanted to address when you were asking about the flooding and the drainage issues directly, there is specifically an area in front of Parker Road Bible Church down at the south end, which is in that area that falls outside of the village and or township limits. It's actually in the, I believe, the New Lenox portion. Am I right, Ski? Okay. And that floods the roadway to the point where traffic cannot pass, especially in the winter months when we have some icing conditions that go over that. To the best of my knowledge, after living here 31 years, the only other thing that my husband and I have seen recently, in recent years, is drainage problems on property due to a lot of it is directly due to the mowing practices of Will County. Rather than using extended mowers that come over, they take the tractors directly down into the ditch and don't use side loading mowers. And they go through after wet conditions and they degrade the ditches. We've seen that on our property, the property on our side, we're on the east side of Parker, directly to the north of us, and we've seen it specifically to another neighbor right across the street from that. And we have called the county has done a little work here and there, but not to the standard where it's resolved. The neighbor to the north of us used to be able to use their lawnmower directly to mow the front easement and right-of-way area, and they can't do that anymore. They can't even do it by hand. You have to take a weed whacker because there's always water in there. So details do matter. These are the details that affect us and affect all of our neighbors. The other thing that you have to keep in mind, my last detail that I want to point out is we're all on well and septic out there. We love it. We feed our animals, whether we have dogs, cats, horses, goats, pigs, sheep, you name it, we got it out there. We feed our animals that way. And depending on the size of our lots, whether we're on 1.5 acre, 2 acre parcel, 5 or 10 acre parcel, depending when our house was built. Some of us have our well or septic in the front of our house. Others have, if we have one of those, then we have the other in the back of the house. So some of my neighbors are going to lose their houses if this happens. Let's not mince words. There's people that are going to lose their homes because of this. Because if their septic is in the front and their well's in the back and they're coming after the front, they're not going to have a spot to put their septic, and there's no sewer system out there. So there's going to be people that lose their homes because of this. Details matter. We're all details, and we all matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that is the end of public question and answer. Was there anybody else? Yes, Ms. Sabo. Sure, please.
I just wanted to attend the meeting. I did not want to speak, but there was some subject that came up, and that was a matter of time. And so there were 2 other people that addressed this, and I think it has something to do with Will County's meeting and what they actually did on 143rd Street. I think that they decided what they wanted and didn't really listen to the people. So according to the other projects that the county has done, they take comments, but then they limit the number of time that any comments have, or any municipality has, or people have coming through. They have 2 more meetings or workshops in the 2nd quarter of next year and in the 4th quarter of next year. So I have read. So after that, is there any influence at all? Are they going to take any comments? So I'm sure many people in this room have attended the workshop that was held at the church, and there wasn't much back and forth communication. It's only what the county showed us and wanted us to know. They're not clear on a lot of things. So how much influence does the village of Homer Glen have? How much do we have as a body of people? So we need to be careful about doing this. I don't know if interrupt is the correct word, but we need to interrupt what they are doing in order to have the time to consider very carefully what can be done, what we can do. And of course, there's their vote of whether they would want to let us have the jurisdiction, as I have learned tonight. So please verify this about the time. And as far as the bat is concerned, now I'm confused about that. I thought if there was an endangered species, it was endangered every year. But I learned tonight that they're only concerned about the endangered bat when the breeding season is going on. And that after that it's over, the trees can be cut down. So does this go on every year, the breeding season, cut some more trees? So where does the bat live after all? So it seems like this is going to be a truck route. I've heard that mentioned before, I heard it mentioned tonight. There are many indications that that's what they want to do. They have improved the bridge that is close to the Tierling property on Cedar Road. They've made it so that there's heavier traffic. It's for heavier traffic. They've done borings, and this was a question that came up tonight too. The borings, I have heard, were to see if that soil can hold heavier traffic. So there are places that if you have 355 and there's traffic coming off of 355 and they need to go east, we're the pass-through. And this is true with 143rd Street. We're in the place on the map that is the go-through place. So that's what they want to do. Why can't they use Route 6? Eventually, Parker goes to Route 6 along this road. It seems to be that road is going to be improved. Why not use that? So in its study, and I hope that there will be some answers when you get more information from the county, but they have not been clear about things. Now maybe there's been an answer since I heard that the trees are just to see where the bat lives. Well, we have what, 2,000, 4,000 trees tagged? Or are those the trees that are going to be taken down? So I'm just encouraging the board to do what it can to find out what it can do to stop Will County or slow it down so that we get jurisdiction over this. I know money is the issue here, but we can be creative. Thank you.
Thank you. Was there anybody else that we missed? Yes, the gentleman in the back.
Thanks, Board. Thanks, Mayor. Appreciate everybody's time putting this all together. My name is Brian Kovac. I live on Parker, and yeah, I'd lose some trees, that sort of stuff. So it's certainly upsetting to see the county put this together. But you know, I made an observation with this, and you know, we've built supersonic aircraft, spy planes that can fly 3 times faster than the speed of sound. We've built submarines that can go to the bottom of the Marianas Trench. We put men on the moon, and we've returned them back to Earth. And here we sit spending hours and hours and hours of our time trying to figure out how to do nothing. So, you know, my thought process with this is, you know, kind of echoing what Mikey had said here is, can the village afford to lose this type of an area? Everybody seems to have the same comment that this is the crown jewel that was used a few times, you know, of Homer Glen. We've got it's a rural community feel that is still within suburbia hell. And it's kind of a nice reprieve from Orland Park, from Tinley Park, from You know, all the surrounding suburbs, you come to Homer Glen, we have something special here. That's the real difference of what we've got. So, you know, the other thing I observed was everybody I told about this project about, whether they're in Joliet, Frankfurt, Shorewood, New Lenox, you know, surrounding neighborhoods, they're familiar with the area, and you tell them, hey, what's going on? And they want to change the road, not necessarily expand it to 4 lanes or whatever, but you're going to blow it up, put in shoulders and new drainage, widen it, and everybody has the same exact comment, which is, Parker? Why Parker? What are they doing with that area? That doesn't make sense. Why would they do that? So, you know, obviously the only thing I can do is speculate, but my concern, or what I'd like to at least urge you guys as the board, and is to put as much emphasis into this as possible to try to take this from the county. They've been certainly less than transparent with their practices and what they're doing for the residents, and I see them in no way, shape, or form benefiting the residents or the constituents of their own county. You know, we got to take matters into our own hands and make sure that we protect the areas that we have. If they're gone for good. You don't get them back. So, thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Mr. Balich?
Yes, I wasn't going to talk, but I figured I better because I'm your county board rep. And I'm at the county, and I'm the Republican leader at the county, so I have a little bit of influence on what happens. I represent my whole caucus. And about 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, I don't remember exactly when it was, I went to the county and I raised so much hell in the Public Works and Transportation meeting that the entire committee agreed with me. And then I got the chairman of that committee to talk with Jeff Ronaldson, and we stopped the whole thing temporarily. Now, I don't know how long that temporarily thing was, because normally what happens is when you have an argument at the board, it goes to the full board for a vote, and they don't do anything without a full board vote. But because I got the entire committee angry, they temporarily stopped it. So now that was a good thing, but how long are they going to stop it? That's the next question. So I figured it was somewhere between 30 and 60 days before it would go to the full board. When it goes to the full board, I got news for you. They don't care about Homer Glen. There's 22 commissioners. One person lives in Homer Glen, me. That's it. The rest of them live in another city, so they don't care about us. I do because I live here. So I had our attorney from the township draw up a jurisdictional transfer to the township and presented it at the county today. And I told Ronaldson, that's the head engineer, that if the Village of Homer Glen wants to take care of all these people, it's fine with me. We support the Village of Homer Glen. But if the Village of Homer Glen don't want to do it, we're going to go forward as the road district will be doing, not the township, the Homer Township Road District, Memphis will be going forward to take care of the people. But I'm under the impression after this meeting that it sounds like most of the board is in favor of taking care of the people. And by that, I mean not doing anything to change the road and not raising the taxes to do the road, because the township had no intentions of raising taxes, and we're going to leave the road just like it is and take care of it. We've said that numerous times. Now, if the village can do the same thing, we support the village. And I want that real clear, but just remember, everybody, I think Margaret Saber was talking the best about the county. They're going to do that road, and they're going to get federal funding and state funding, and they're not going to wait, because that's how they operate. So, and I'm there, I'm telling you the truth, because I'm on that board, and I know what will happen. So if we stall this thing over and over and over again, you're going to find out the county's going to move in. So now, we got a jurisdictional transfer from the county to the township. We need to get one from the village. And then the township backs off, and then the village could do it. If the village finds after the fact that they don't want to do it, they can give it to the township. We'll take it. But that way there's still an out. It's either the village or the township. The village really should take it. It's in the village, but you know, doggone it, we're not going to let that land go bad. So we're going to be there as a backup. And so everybody in the village board knows it now. We're going to be a backup. If you guys can't do it economically, give it to us. We know how to do it.
Thank you. Mr. Balich. I have a question for you. You're their district rep. Can you help them with the speed limit on their roads? I mean, I know they have to go to the Will County Department of Highway, I believe. Is there any way you can get them all fired up too?
Yeah, you know how that works? You're going to get a kick out of how I have to operate. I have to get an email from somebody complaining. Then I send it to the road commissioner and tell him what's going on. Why can't we do this? And then if he doesn't answer me back or doesn't do anything, then I bring it up at the committee, because I'm on every single committee at the county because I'm the leader. And they know I will. So now I say lower the speed limit. Well, I got to get an email. Someone send me an email, sballage@comcast.net or sballage@willcountyillinois.com. Send me an email about the speed limit, and I'll send it to Ronaldson and tell him I want it done. That's how it has to work. Because every time I go to the county board and say, well, we got a problem in Homer Glen, or we got a problem in Homer Township, you know what happens? Nothing. When I get an email, I send it to everybody. I send it to every single person at the board. So when they know they're dealing with me, they got to deal with someone that's going to put a lot of pressure on them. And that's how I work. So if the village sends me one, oh my God, that would be like a home run. So if you guys send an email to me and say, we want to have the speed limit reduced, yeah, that would be like heaven. They would crap in their pants. So it would be the best thing that ever happened. So you guys please do it. Say the trustees and everybody, or the village writes a letter from the village, and we'll get it done real fast, I guarantee you.
So you're not bombarded with emails. We'll be happy to send you a letter.
Yes, I will get it done real fast when I get an email.
Okay.
You can ask people, I don't know if I took care of anybody here before, but when they give me an email, I get it done.
Levy, one of the worst traffic areas we had, 163rd and Cedar. There was no stop sign there with the school. They wouldn't do anything here. I sent Steve an email as a resident, and we got it done. We had to go out there and look, wow, there's traffic. I mean, it's so stupid. But we got stop signs there, and I think we saved lives.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Steve.
Any problems any of you got ever, send me an email.
What's your email again?
My personal email is sballage, my last name, @comcast.net, BALICH, and then my county email is sballage@willcountyillinois, the whole word, .com. And the emails are how I'm able to force these guys to do something. Otherwise, I get nothing done. So if you call me on the phone, I tell you, please send me an email. I'll listen to you, and I'll say, please send it. That's why, because if you talk to me on the phone, it ain't going to work.
Thank you, Steve. I don't know who was next. Mr. Porfilio.
Thank you. Melissa, great job. I know it took a while to look up all those facts, but I think you did an excellent job. And I would like to thank all the people in the audience that have reflected a lot of my thoughts on ways to keep it the way it is from an engineering perspective. I wanted to speak on that a little bit tonight, and I wanted to speak as the highway commissioner on, yes, I would take over the corridor. I told Heidi actually at the first meeting I met her at, where's she at? She's out in the hallway, I think. I told her that night I would take the corridor over. I'm not going to increase taxes. I'm not going to hire more staff. I know how it's done. 35 years I've been in this business. Highway work all over the country in all levels, in all types of areas. I know what I'm doing. If the village does it, thank you very much, as long as you pay attention to what all the residents said and how they want to keep it alone. Leave it alone. Don't change the speed limit. If anything, lower it. Keep it the way it is. Don't change anything. Don't change the horizontal alignment. Don't change the vertical alignment. Don't widen the damn road. Don't touch the ditches. Leave it alone. Because what's going to happen? Trucks. So when you do pavement design in engineering, there's lots of formulas you got to go through to tell you how to design a pavement, what it's made out of. There's different factors that you look at. And for every single truck, that represents over 3,000 car loadings, which is what, 2 days? I think there was 1,500 cars a day or something, Heidi said. So you don't want any trucks in the corridor, period. You don't want any, and the county is big on that. They're about moving vehicles. They're not about queuing and delays, they're about moving vehicles through there. And many people in the audience mentioned this already. I'm beating a dead horse, but it's a short circuit route from the east from Orland to the south to 6. And we don't want that. The people in the room don't want that. So I encourage the village to please listen to the people in this room. As far as costs go, they're full of crap. It ain't 20 million. There's no way in hell it's 20 million. Not even in California it would cost 20 million. Brett did a good job. He's not here tonight, but he did a good job with Brent Woods presenting some numbers. The geotechnical analysis you haven't seen yet. I don't need to see one. I look at the pavement, I walk the entire route. That pavement's fine. I look at pavement that's 10 years old sometimes that looks worse than that. It's been out there for 40-some years. Well, you know what? It's got pozzolanic powder in it. Nobody knows about that. Not many people know about that. Back in the 90s, we used that. It's a cement-based mix. It gets stronger over time. So I think Brett said he walked it too. I don't see a reason to reconstruct the whole damn road. I don't see it. I see removal of the asphalt and replacement of the asphalt. Leave the base the hell alone, because when you disturb it, you weaken it. You don't want to remove it. You want to leave it in. That's going to decrease costs immensely. And as far as how you stage the construction when you do get to that point, this might be 5-10 years down the road. I wouldn't touch it. What you would want to do is leave it at, I think it's 10-foot lanes right now, Brent?
It's 10
Is it 10 foot?
It's 10 foot, yes.
11?
They're 10. In some areas, they're 10, I believe, and then they said it's between 10 and 11. They told us it would be, well, county told us it was 10. When we went out and measured, it was between 10 and 11.
So the capacity of the road is based on not only the alignments of the road, but the lane widths. Every time you add a foot above 10 feet, it increases, I think, by 1,000 cars a day on how much you can get through there. And trucks don't like 10-foot lanes because when there's a truck going the other way, they might clip mirrors. If you look at the full width of a truck from edge of mirror to edge of mirror, it's like 10, it's approaching 10 feet. So that's another deterrent to trucks in the corridor is the narrow lanes. There's a lot of things that work naturally. And you got to talk about safety a little bit here, but still, there's people that have been out here, what, 35, 40 years? How many fatal accidents have there been in that amount of time? Maybe a handful? But is it user error? Were they drinking? Yes. Was it at night in a rainstorm? I mean, there's a lot of other factors you got to look at, and not blame it on the road. There's a lot of other things you got to look at. Reaction time. So, bravo if you take over the road. If you don't decide to take over the road district is ready, got paperwork rolling at the county to take it. So we're going to wait and see what happens, but please don't wait, because once you get to phase 2, you're screwed. You can't do anything. They're moving like a train down a hill. You can't stop it. So you have to get together, pool your resources, decide what you want to do, and realize that the cost on this can be split into different years of improvements. You don't have to do all 4 miles at once. You can stage it. Just realize that. That's all I got. Thanks.
Did you want to speak again? You said you had something.
Yes, I do.
You could approach the podium.
First of all, I want to thank the last two gentlemen for what they said. And these are personal experiences, not hearsay, fact. Mayor, please listen to the gentleman that just spoke. And Steve, timing is of essential. Legalities. We've had meetings with lawyers at Will County, and I can't tell you how timely this is. If you don't move to stop this project, it's too late. It's over. It's done. And here's a couple of, I think, interesting facts. When we were dealing with Latz prior to Jeff Ronaldson, there were so many, when you're trying to reduce speed limit, at that time, it might be different now, there was maybe 200 calls to him. I stayed on him till he got it and was going to get it resolved. Well, he sent a truck out on 167th, right where it meets Hadley. And the truck came out, dump truck, or I'm sorry, pickup truck with men in the back. And it was a dry, sunny, warm day. So I sent the men back. I said, no, you're coming out when it's slippery, when it's rainy or snow. Guess what? He did send out his truck. The truck was lost, it fell into the ditch, and the men fell out of the pickup truck. That's how we got the speed limit reduced. And that is a fact. And if you wait, it's over for everyone. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you. Okay, so we're done with the public question and answer. I'm going to give the trustees an opportunity to speak again. I have a couple things I wanted to touch base on again as well. Just a quick recap. We know that Lieutenant Taylor has to get his men out on this road. We know that. We all know who Steve Balich is now. He gave his email, so you can all reach out to him, but the village, if it's okay with the rest of the board, I know we can't make a vote, but a consensus to email him ourselves to move forward and seeing if we can get that speed limit lowered, that would be great. Yes, I agree, we don't have time to move out. We don't have a lot of time to move on this. We have time to come up with funding, but we don't have a lot of time to make a decision. And that is why I'm going to request from this board to take the next 2 weeks before our next board meeting. Wait, nope, that's a week. We gotta either you get a week or 3 weeks. We gotta make that decision to have it on the agenda for more discussion and a vote. I agree with the residents who spoke. It's not about Homer Glen can't afford these residents. We don't want to lose our residents. We don't want you to lose your home values. And for those residents who live in Homer Township, we care about you too. This is all for one here. We really do care about all the residents. I know that the comment keeps being made, if the village takes this road or doesn't take this road, the township's going to take this road. If we're going to take this road, we're going to take this road, and we're going to do it, and we're going to do it right. I'm not passing the buck to somebody else. I'm going to end my comments right there for just a moment, and I'm going to go around to the rest of the trustees, and then I'll finish up again. Trustee Fialco, do you have anything?
Yes, I would. The same thing that took place here for this workshop and everybody that came out, I would encourage everybody to go to those Will County meetings, because the way I understand it, there's not a whole lot of people that show up to those meetings either, unless something big is happening. But I would encourage the same enthusiasm that we had in this room to try and slow this, as we're talking about, slow this down or stop this, so that does not take place out there and get to that second phase. We don't want it to make it to that second phase. And we do support all the residents. The only reason I said the residents over there was because that was addressed that way several different times. But we support, this whole board supports that process and not changing anything over there for the historical value that is out there. Make no mistake with that. Thank you.
Trustee Reinders.
I would just like to thank everybody for coming out tonight, and I have to tell you, I am so proud not only to be on this board, but to be a member of this community, because we fight for what we believe is right. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Reinders. Trustee McNaughton.
Yeah, thank you. 4 points. The first one, thank you for the engagement recently, second highest level of engagement. Thank you guys for coming out this evening, for rallying around all of the different meetings to get us to this point. Second is the impact to this village. If we don't do this, there is no other option in my mind. The third is the protection of history, trees, people's homes, land, safety. That is our responsibility to protect that. And the last point is the urgency to act on us, the board, to support our community, not that community, our community, all of us. And hopefully we can do that as soon as next Wednesday.
Thank you, Mr. McNaughton. Trustee Mason.
Yes, ma'am. First of all, I want to thank all the residents of Homer coming out tonight. It's been very informative to me. Again, I would reiterate what Trustee McNaughton just said. We have to act on it fairly quickly. I agree with the mayor as well. We can look at the funding at a later date and time, but it's imperative that we move on this and we take it within the village that would be my consensus at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Mason. Trustee Steinlen.
Yes, first I'd like to thank Commissioner Perfilio for reiterating that the costs are not going to be $20 million, and it will be much less. I do have a question for Brent Woods, Director Woods. How much we mow property for the township, right?
No, this year the township took over their own mowing.
Okay, we just do snow plowing?
Just do the snow plowing and a couple other heavy lifting items, trees, trimming, that sort of thing.
Okay. I was just wondering if they were to take over that, would that reduce the staffing that we would need?
Well, I could always use another person, but we are very stretched as we are. So I'd love to take over the road just to get that extra.
Oh, okay, just asking. All right, and then I would just like to thank everybody for, this was a very nice, orderly workshop, calm, and Melissa, you did a great job. And I would just say that I wholeheartedly support, I just think that the village needs to take over the road.
Thank you, Trustee Steinlen. Okay, and for me, again, a sincere thank you to all the residents. I know there was many outside meetings held outside this boardroom. Thank you to Trustees Reinders and Steinlen for attending those meetings and, sharing the information as much as possible. Thank you to the staff for always keeping us informed, even at 5, 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night from my random phone calls. And thank you to the residents and the trustees who are in attendance for being respectful of one another and keeping the conversation light and easy. I do agree that we don't have any other choice. I think we do have to take this road to protect these residents. I think we've got some smart people on this board. We've got really good staff who are good with numbers and can be creative. And we've got some time to do it. So I'm sure we can all put our heads together and make that happen. So I know like I said, I know we can't take a vote, but is there a consensus to have this put on the next agenda in 1 week to make a vote on it?
Yes.
Yes. Trustee Fialco?
Yes, I'm just, the vote would say exactly what? If you were the word, the vote, how would the vote be?
It probably goes something along the lines of, does the Village of Homer Glen want to proceed with take the jurisdiction.
And the reason I ask is because of the Will County issue, and we're not in that position yet, but yes, absolutely.
Okay, Trustee Snyland?
Yes.
Mr. Baber, would you be so kind to put it on the next board meeting? And I hope that helps the residents. I hope you guys sleep easier at night now. I think we've got some support up here for you guys, and let's move forward and get this done. Does anybody want to hang out longer, or does anyone make a motion to adjourn?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Good night.